close to your face. You could pull it a little tiny bit closer.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I feel like it's...
Just pretend you're on the radio.
I've never been on the radio. How do I pretend?
You've never been on the radio?
No, I've never been. No.
Have you ever been interviewed for like a little clip of something? Have you ever been on the news when we played basketball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. No, I think, no. I've testified in the legislature.
Just pretend you're
in
testifying.
Illinois.
That'll create a nice relaxed atmosphere. Okay, so I think we're good. I think Jessica, Youngblood Kirkpatrick, is here with me on the Rock Island line, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, well, we've been talking about this forever.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited we're finally doing it.
And we talk on the phone, not every morning, but a lot of mornings.
Yeah.
On the way to work or throughout the day.
Yeah.
So we talk all the time, but you're so kind and agreed to come on and interview me about my Rock Island story, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the stuff we just like normally talk about.
Yeah, because we should.
Yeah.
We should. Well, thanks for having me, but really I'm like having you kind of. Mm-hmm. So I get to interview you, which is
I'm
awesome.
Nervous.
Oh, so we were just talking about we never sit across from each other and chat. We're always like on the phone or something. So this will be vulnerable and cool.
It will be fun.
We've been friends for, how long have we been friends?
Well, we were first enemies because I played against you in junior high basketball.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, you weren't my enemy, but you were really good at basketball.
So were you.
You played for Edison and I played for Washington. And then once we got to Rocky, we became friends.
Yeah.
But at first, we were mortal enemies.
We were just junior high enemies.
Yeah, because you and your sister Jen, both very good basketball players. And
yeah, mostly Jen, but I was an add-on. But yeah.
You're a part of my Rock Island story, really.
Well, we should dive into that because, I want to talk. You have a deep Rock Island history, I feel like.
I took notes because my mom and I actually recorded a podcast with my sister, but we botched our Rock Island history so badly that she made me study my ancestry. Because Lissy and I were like, I don't know where that person was from, but yeah, we do. My family has been in Rock Island for a long time.
So you start all of your podcasts since the very first one with asking your guests what's their Rock Island story or what's their connection to Rock Island. So I get to ask you, what's your Rock Island story and what's your connection to Rock Island?
Yeah. So I was born in Moline because there was not a hospital delivering in Rock Island when I was born, but brought home to my home in Rock Island.
What was it? It was...
Well, was it... See, my mom...
I feel like Jen was born...
Franciscan was the Rock Island hospital, I think.
Right.
But then there was the hospital in Moline.
Yeah.
And there was like a year cut off, maybe. I think Jim was born in Rock Island, my husband, and I was born in Moline.
Oh, okay.
So I think starting in like 1980, Rock Island since then hasn't been delivering babies, maybe.
Oh.
But I don't know. I just know I was born in Moline, not Rock Island.
You were born in Moline.
Weren't you born in Moline?
I was born in Peoria.
You were born. Oh,
I
that's
was
right.
premature.
You were teeny
I was a
tiny.
teeny tiny. So
Yes.
I was flown to Peoria. But
Didn't you have to drink
but my
out of
siblings were born here.
Didn't you have to drink out of a thimble?
I did drink out of a thimble. My mom told you that. But your dad delivered Jen. Yeah. Your dad delivered my sister, so we have that connection too. But
that's right.
Yeah. So I wasn't born here, but my siblings were. You were born in Moline.
I was born in Moline and came back to my house right by Emmanuel Lutheran in Rock Island. And I have 3 siblings, so 2 older brothers, a little sister. But both my parents went to Rock Island High School and Augustana College. And then
your mom and dad went to Augie.
Yeah, my mom and dad went to Augie. And so did my dad's dad and my mom's dad.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I knew that.
So both my grandpas went to Augie. Both my grandmas took classes at Augie.
Okay.
And then both my grandpas also went to Rock Island High School.
Wow.
So my grandpa Byron and my grandpa Bob both went to Rock Island High School.
So you're 3rd generation Rock Island High School. Yeah. Is that right?
I think.
Do I know how to count generations?
So Lulu would be like 4th generation Rock Island High School.
Lulu, your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So basically everybody in my family immigrated from Sweden except my grandpa Bob's side. They're like from elsewhere.
Yeah.
And my grandpa Bob's family, his parents were, I think his mom was like a custodian And my grandpa Gus was actually, he like rode the railways. Like he rode around on trains.
Like as a
like
hobo?
Yes, like an old fashioned. So, you know, then they had my grandpa Bob. And then on my dad's mom's side, she immigrated from Sweden. Like her older sister was born in Sweden, but my grandma was born in Pennsylvania. And she was visiting Chicago and someone heard her speaking Swedish on a bus and invited her to come to Augustana to assist the dean in like Swedish language stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So my dad's mom ended up coming to Rock Island because of Augustana College. And at that time, my grandpa had enrolled there. So they met at Augie. And then
that's really cool.
Yeah. And then my mom's whole side of the family, I think the earliest ones came like during the Civil War. Because I know on my mom's side, they came from Sweden, and a person who was American paid her like great-great-grandpa to go into the Civil War to fight for the North on his son's behalf, like a wealthy guy, and he actually died. Like he went down in the Illinois 124th Regiment or something and died. And then his kids were in the Chicago fire in 1871.
Oh my gosh.
So they actually like fled the building where the Chicago fire, whatever took out the Chicago fires. And also got connected to Augustana College and then Augustana Hospital because they spoke Swedish or knew people who were Swedish. And so same on like the other side of the family, like Lutheran churches, pastors, Swedish Lutheran stuff, and ended up being at Augustana. So there's a residence hall there called Erickson Hall.
Yeah.
So that's like one of my relatives.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's my great-grandpa's brother, I believe.
Is Erickson?
I got to study it, though, because I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So his name was Knut Erickson. So my grandma, her dad, on my mom's side.
Okay.
There were 3 boys. One fell down an elevator shaft. One was like basically the comptroller and vice president of Augie.
Okay.
And then the other brother, Ernie, who's my great-grandpa, he had a 6th grade education and somehow ended up being a hospital administrator of Augustana Hospital in Chicago with a 6th grade education, and then ended up moving to here. He got an honorary degree from Augie, so that would have been my great-grandpa.
Okay.
So yeah, just lots of immigrants from Sweden who kind of coalesced around the Midwest and were kind of drawn to Augustana through all the Swedish stuff, basically.
So you have got deep Rock Island roots. They weave or all connect through Augie, which is such a cool place.
And then for my kiddos, all of their grandparents will also have gone to Augustana.
Really?
Isn't that weird?
Jim's parents?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
So both my parents went to Augie, and then my husband graduated from Augie, and then both of his parents went to Augustana. So his mom came from Chicago to go to Augie, and his dad, who also went to Rocky, went to Augie.
So I was going to get to that because you have your family story, but then you married someone who also kind of has a deep Rock Island history. Mm-hmm. But so in your family, this is all weaving through Augie, and so we make our way to your parents. So they were both raised here.
Yep.
Your dad, I just listened to the episode with
Heinz.
Yeah. So that was really fun. But so your dad grew up was it on 30th Street or off of 30th Street?
I think they had a couple different houses, but that was where he lived. The bulk of his life was on 30th Street. So he went to Eugene Field, which I went to. My kids go to.
That's so
your
cool.
dad has a history with Augustana too, though.
Yeah.
So it ties us all together.
It was Augie. But so your dad's family grew up here. Your mom grew up here. Mm-hmm. Rock Island High School graduates. They met in high school?
They met in high school. And Jim and I met in high school. So we're real dorks.
We're high school sweethearts all around.
Yeah.
And then, so your parents met in high school, Rock Island, both go to Augie. Then what do they do after that? What's their journey back? Because your dad went to Iowa?
Yeah, my dad went to Iowa Medical School around the time of like the Vietnam War. He was assigned as part of like medical field service in New Orleans. They lived in West Virginia for a little bit for him to do residency.
Okay.
But after he was done with like all of his medical training and they'd had 2 kids, they came back here and actually bought my grandparents' house. And then my grandparents moved to Florida.
Okay.
So my mom ended up as an adult living in the house that she grew up in. And then I grew up in.
And then they had, both your brothers were born here?
They were actually born, one in Iowa City, one in like West Virginia or something.
Okay.
Somewhere else.
So while they were traveling, and then you were born in Moline.
I was born in 1980.
1980.
In the Quad Cities.
The 1900s.
Yes, I was born in the 1900s.
And then I feel like we're like skipping past so much. I feel like you have such a deep family history because your dad in particular, his family is very musical. I feel like there's a musical connection.
Yeah. So my grandpa, who was he was a music teacher at Rock Island High School. So my grandpa Bob was very musical. My grandma loved to sing, but also like my other side of the family really likes to sing too. So my sister's a musician, Lissy, but all
you have a really good voice
family events. There's a lot of singing and, lots and lots of singing.
But didn't your grandpa have, am I getting this wrong? Your grandpa Bob had like a singing group, like an old
he was a barbershop quartetter.
Yeah.
And so he was in an international barbershop quartet that won like an international championship in barbershop. So he carried around one of those little circular things where you could like, blow into it and it would do the tune for you. And then he was just always harmonizing and
just bebopping around or harmonizing.
Yep.
But did he perform in here, like locally? Did they like?
He was in different plays. I think he had us in plays when we were little. He was always planning something. He, for his birthday, made all the grandkids do like a variety show where we had to perform. Everyone had to do like a talent or a song, and we were all probably like, "Oh God!" But yeah, very musical, very energetic. He was on city council. My dad's dad.
Okay, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. He actually ran for mayor.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you did mention that maybe on one of your
But I think there was a scandal that ensued and he did not win.
With him? Oh, you did? Who did you interviewed somebody and mentioned that, right?
Yeah, maybe when Thurgood, when I talked to
Thurgood.
Maybe,
Yeah.
But so he was just a very involved, energetic, person. My dad was always like that too, just very involved in like public health and what people need and how do we organize things and how do we create a better system or a better way to deliver services or.
Yeah, your dad, I remember even in high school, which we'll get to that, but just him being kind of an advocate on women's health stuff and continuing that, I think, through his career and life, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think you asked people this too, but what was it like for you growing up in Rock Island? What was your childhood like?
I think my childhood was very much my family. When I think back, it's like my older brothers and what they were doing, and my parents had a lot of friends, and I remember going to Augustana football games and hanging out at Lee's Liquor as like a kid running around. My parents were fun and they were social, and I was just kind of really loved my family and like hung out in my neighborhood and rode bikes with Jera and Beth, and we had such a group of friends, like the Eugene Field crew, but it all felt very like insular, and I think felt like I grew up or started to learn more about myself and who I was like in junior high school.
Later.
Yeah. I feel like when I was young, I was just like a part of my family.
Yeah.
And
do you remember like the Rock Island community at all? Or was it more like Augie? Because I feel like I grew up on Augustana's campus. So that's my memories of Rock Island is kind of being at Augie. Do you
remember when they had those big pits that you could jump into by the basketball court?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I can still smell that.
Yeah. Or the track mats.
Yeah.
That they used to have out. We used to jump on those.
So why are you connected to Augustana?
Wait a minute. This isn't my interview. My dad went to Augie and played basketball and football there. And then, the short story is he came back to coach, which is what my memories as a child are, just being on campus and at sports in the gym. And yeah, we grew up in the gym and on the football field and the swimming pool and climbing all over things. Maybe that's why we liked
each other, because we have these deep Augustana athletic roots.
I think so. We talked about the willow tree.
We talked about the willow tree at the football field.
Yes. Is it still there?
I don't think so, because they built that new... that must be on the north side of the field now. There's a whole press box. Isn't it Erickson Field? What?
Isn't it Erickson Field, right?
I don't know. Is that what it's called?
Maybe I have that mixed up.
Because that might be after Knut Erickson. There's Erickson Hall, which is that's part of my family. But my grandpa, my great grandpa Art Swedberg was called the father of modern athletics at Augustana.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. So he was the athletic director at Augie.
Okay.
And then my grandpa Byron is in the Hall of Fame. And my dad was the first NCAA scholar athlete from Augustana.
Oh my gosh.
In wrestling.
I didn't know that. Did he play football too?
He played football too.
Yeah.
So just tons of
Well, Cecil's in the Hall of Fame.
And so Cecil's in the Hall of Fame. Jim's dad is in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, yeah.
We should have gone to Augustana.
We should have gone. I know. I really should have probably. But so your young memories, our family, some friends sprinkled in there, but kind of a small world, which seems like normal developmentally to kind of just have this little. And so then when do you kind of remember that growing or changing? Like what was junior high and high school like for you? Which is funny because we went to high school together to ask you that. But what was...
Well, I don't know if it was like that for you, but going into junior high in Rock Island was just like an opening of a whole new world of, other people and other experiences. And it wasn't just your 5 friends from elementary school. So I just think I've been a person who pays attention or notices stuff. I don't know. So it was interesting. And I dated Eric Calloway and I was deeply in love with him in junior high. So that took up a lot of time and energy.
Boys. Yeah.
Who's a loved classmate and friend of ours both. But I don't know, Jess. I was just playing sports, got into basketball, which was super big for me. It just seemed when you get into junior high and high school more what do I like to do? Yeah. What things are interesting to me?
And you were a really good athlete.
And so not as good as you, but.
Not true. You were really good athlete. And so you started playing sports and then, what are your reflections in high school? Because you met your husband.
I was always a person who was relationship-y. I had a person that I really loved and I really liked having I'm a relationship person. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think so.
So, I met Jim. That was really important to me. But I dated other people and dated some people in the beginning of college. But sports were huge. Yeah. I think we were serious. I liked school. I liked academics and, classes and reading and writing papers. So I think I was serious about school and sports and... but we kind of partied too. It was a different time in the 90s. Yeah. Yeah. Except that year we got really serious about basketball. We were no partying for
anyone. We were pretty serious a lot of the time, but I think we were willing to put that first. But I think one of the things, our friendship developed in high school, but one of the things I was thinking about this conversation with you is just how Rock Island shaped your worldview going into college. Because I think you had a different experience at Northwestern. But just how growing up in Rock Island, and we've probably talked about this before, but how did that shape your worldview going into college?
Yeah, in so many different ways, because I think in high school, just becoming aware of inequality, really. And I worked as a lifeguard at Longview Pool. Oh, yeah. And so it was just that I would sit in the tall lifeguard chair and you kind of had up the hill behind you and below the hill in front of you from this one chair I was always sitting in. And just noticing why isn't everyone the same? Just kind of really understanding things that happen in schools like tracking. And I think through playing basketball and not only having friends who were from different socioeconomic groups from me, it wasn't just a friend. It was oh, I love this person. and I know them, and I know how good and wonderful they are. And I'm also seeing that like our lives are probably going to unfold very differently. And
do you think you knew that then? Do you think you knew that in high school?
I think I started to understand it in high school. Did you? I mean, why weren't you in my English class?
No.
You're one of the most gifted writers that I've ever known. Why weren't we in the same English class?
We've had that conversation. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was, and then I wasn't, which is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. But I do think, sports is the great equalizer. And a lot of people that I've met throughout my life, I feel like if they've played sport, as a teen or an adult, they have a much more dynamic worldview. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, basketball did that. But it sounds like for you that the lifeguarding, you mentioned being like generally observant, you probably were paying attention to all these things.
We had a classmate who had a baby in high school, and I was her godmom, or am. I mean, I haven't been like a stellar godmother over the years, not even to my own siblings' kids. Yeah. But, just noticing, I think just really before it was a popular term, I think I really noticed my privilege.
Yeah.
I had a gigantic house. I had access to a lot of things that benefited me. If I wanted to do a lesson or go somewhere, like learn about something, I just had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And a lot of security and safety, and almost like there's a path laid out for you. You're going to go to college. You're going to be in all the AP classes. You're going to, you're going to be successful. You're going to be a leader. And I tried really hard to mess that up. I was kind of naughty. And even despite that, I still just kept moving forward.
But what do you mean by that? Because I think you were there's just some defiance there, but maybe that was an observation of our environment a little bit. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I am sober, so obviously like some drinking stuff. I got arrested a couple times. Like, I made some bad choices, and I could overcome those really easily. And I think Jim made some bad choices when he was younger too, and he could like really overcome those pretty easily. And I saw maybe friends from different socioeconomic groups have to be really careful about not getting in trouble, or I don't know. I just think that I really recognized early on that I'm super, super lucky. Yeah. Like, and I guess when you know people deeply, you understand how similar you are, and that your lives are going to unfold differently. And it's not just because like, oh, look at me, how hard I'm working. I'm going to do really well because of me. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, I'm going to do really well because the dice of life were rolled and I got really lucky. Yeah. And one of the ways I got the luckiest is I have super loving parents. I mean, my parents really love me, not that I didn't have challenges like we all do, but I just feel like I looked around and was like, we live in a world that is unequal. And I think from a young age, both of us were like, what are we going to do? Well, what are we going to do about that?
What are we going to do about it? Yeah, you love the people around you. And so one of the things that happened when we were in high school that I feel like we've talked about before is the Title IX lawsuit. And I mean, my recollection of it is probably off, but what do you remember about that? And do you think that was also something that contributed to, this inequality that you noticed? A little bit of a fire under you to kind of like...
Yeah, so you and I and other teammates of ours brought us a lawsuit against the school to try to equalize boys and girls sports. And what I remember is that like the boys had their laundry professionally laundered, and we were not allowed to play in the boys' gym. Like we couldn't practice in there, we couldn't play in there, we didn't have cheerleaders at games. Do you remember we had one side of the court that was buckling under water damage? And so if you were like in that area of the court when you were playing, it was kind of like dangerous because the floors weren't even. We didn't have a locker room. It's
absurd now, but
yeah, we didn't have new basketballs, like, and our boys programs were so popular and important. But that team that year was not good. Like we were way better than them.
Yeah.
But we had to endure a lot of the like, well, no one's going to come to the girls' games.
Right.
And if you want equality, you have to be drawing in more money. You're not bringing any money into the high school. So why should you also get your uniforms laundered? And we weren't necessarily saying we wanted that, but
right.
The school actually lied about that. They said, no, they wash their own uniforms. And then my mom followed them when she saw the uniform swinging in the back of the laundry truck and like confronted the athletic director. But I think that was an important experience.
Yeah.
And also an experience of being told, well, we just can't have we can't have equality because that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
You have these pie in the sky, silly ideas about equality, and you don't understand how boys' sports are funded.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we're just all making this all up. I mean,
right.
What do you remember about it?
Well, no, I was just going to ask, do you remember?
I remember people calling me a lesbian. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of this now, like living in particular now, where in a time where the WNBA has taken off, and kind of the conversations around women's sports now, it all just seems crazy. But in some ways, it's the same conversation in a different time and place. But I remember more. I think I was asked to join like a subcommittee around these conversations as maybe a part of the settlement, in addition to the conversations around the hiring of the new athletic director. Do you remember that?
Not really. I remember sitting in some meetings. But...
Yeah. And I just remember what bothered me the most was kind of the look on the faces of some of these coaches who happened to be male football coaches. And it was sort of oh, isn't this cute? And I just that just bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I remember one of them saying something about like money, or I think I maybe said something about like, what about like the highlight zone used to only be, right? And maybe I don't remember that right. It used to only be the male sports or basketball night or Friday night.
Yeah.
And I think I said something like, women just need, I mean, at that time, I don't know how I articulated it, but a platform. Like, why aren't we on the highlight zone? Why aren't people exposed to watching us? Which seems like today, like the obvious answer that,
Mm-hmm.
the WNBA is on TV, people see how good women are and they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is worthwhile. But I just remember one of the coaches saying something like, yeah, well, try making some money for your sport or something like that. And I just thought like, how dismissive,
Yeah.
how inappropriate, like, and I just lost respect for that person in that moment, because I just thought, how are you even around young people generally with that perspective?
Yeah, I think it's having leaders who are limited in their vision of what equality could look like or what is possible. And this idea that like, we can only do what we've always done.
Yeah.
This is just the way that it is. And how frustrating that is, and how that stayed with me my whole life. I mean, I think to this day, people might want to pat me on the head and be like, how cute that you want.
How cute you have this podcast,
Yeah.
right? Which we'll get to that too. But so you, like moving forward in your life a little bit, so you kind of took some of these things with you, obviously to college,
Mm-hmm.
and you went to Northwestern for undergrad.
Yeah, and I thought that I was rich until I got to Northwestern, and then I was like, oh boy, no, I'm not, but also the quality of like coming from a small town and just the inequality in resources, and then moving into this bigger space and seeing even more inequality. And so there was all that. Also, it was very like segregated. I mean, there were not a lot of opportunities to have friendships and deep relationships with all sorts of different people. So I did pledge a sorority, but I ended up dropping out. Like, it wasn't the same as connections I'd made through things like sports.
Yeah.
We were arguing over like, what should we write on the back of this T-shirt? And I don't know.
You're like,
so college was weird. I don't know.
yeah.
Did you have a weird college too, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I won't put you on the spot, but
I think this relates to one of the wonderful things that I've reflected on in my life about Rock Island, which I used to call it sort of like, maybe it put blinders on a little bit. And Rock Island has, just like every community in the United States, struggled with segregation all these things. But I think I felt very much in high school the way you did, in that I had friends, I felt like I had friends from every socioeconomic background, race. Yeah. And then I went to college and that wasn't the case. Yeah. And it was very segregated. And it was really hard.
Yeah. And we both went to Midwest. You went to University of Iowa.
Yeah.
We both went to Midwestern colleges, and then you ended up in Chicago for law school.
Yeah.
So kind of in the same geographic area. And I think.
But I think college, well, I think racism existed, and I'm sure I experienced it in some way in high school or observed it for sure. But definitely when I got to Iowa, and that was the first time that it was directed at me. So it was a little bit of a shock. But do you remember at Northwestern kind of seeing more of that, like that inequality? And then did you major in social work, or you?
So I majored in, it was called Human Development and Psychological Services.
Okay.
But I did like a minor in like African American like education. So it wasn't like African American studies, but it was looking at education with this lens of, one of my classes was called The Phenomenology of Blackness. What a weird name for a class.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Like I read Frantz Fanon and, James Baldwin. And I think that probably I was interested in that because maybe I was longing or missing some things from junior high and high school. Like I have a deep appreciation, I think, for Black culture. And when it's not in your life, all of a sudden, I think you kind of miss it. I don't know if you felt that way, even going to Iowa and just being surrounded by, I don't know. There's fun and hopefulness and strength and resilience and, and then I remember like getting drunk one night and like crying with these 3 girls being like, they were probably like, what is wrong with this bitch? But, I was like, where do you guys live? Because all the dorms were kind of segregated too. Yeah. And I think they did that to help students of color feel a sense of connection and that they weren't alone. But it meant that like my dorm was just all white kids. Yeah. Bob McCulloch. So I saw some other, like at the lunch table for a little while, I tried to like seek out people and sit next to them, but it just came off as creepy instead of being,
But also this
do I sound really weird right now?
No, but no, I think it's no. But like extreme privilege, like you're describing, like, which we know is tied, economics, race, like, but extreme privilege that you're observing along with that, which is a whole other dynamic, different from Rock Island in a way for you.
Yeah. There weren't natural settings to just mix it up with people who were different than you. Yeah. It was already very homogenous. Yeah. And then any group that was different, everybody was like clumped together, probably for a sense of community and safety, but it meant that it was harder to get with people or just be with people. And I made wonderful friends. I mean, I remember my roommate was from New York, and it was like the second week of college, and I remember saying like, oh, that's so gay. And she was like, what? Yeah. I'm like, oh, like that's gay. And she's like, why would you say that? Like, I don't know. Don't we all just say that about everything? It's 1999, Friends is on the air. Like, she said, oh, well, actually, my sister is gay. And like, when you say that, you're basically saying, because I was saying, well, I'm not talking about gay people. I'm saying, isn't that like stupid? And she's like, so you're equating someone's sexual orientation with being less than, and she really challenged me on it. And I never used that term in that way again. It was like, so cool also to go to school with different people and have, one thing I appreciated about my college experience, my master's program, like intellectually being challenged, thinking about ideas, thinking about policy, even when I was doing my master's, I did training in like facilitating dialogue in diverse groups. So it would be kids from different racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and like having those conversations. I don't know. It's a little tangent, but there was stuff I missed about living in Rock Island, but there was also stuff I really appreciated, especially around gender stuff and sexuality stuff. Like I feel like I learned and deepened, because I feel like there was a lot of homophobia at Rocky when we were that age.
Probably in
and
the
very
in the
unchecked.
90s generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just that we advocated for women's basketball and people called me a dyke. That was like the big thing, was to be, you know.
Right. Is that, that's the best they had.
Like, you like girls sports.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm dating the quarterback, but you know, luckily Jim was never like that. I mean, he was never.
Yeah.
He liked, you know, I think he appreciated what we were doing, even though he was like a boys sports person.
But I think and I think this comes through in the podcast too, but I think you're just you've always been a deep feeling person. You have like a really deep empathy for people generally, and you kind of carry that, I feel like, no matter what. And I think it comes through in all of the things that you're doing now, but listening to you, I'm hearing you describe these interactions in college that you appreciate, because I think you can see the humanity in these people that you're meeting and what their perspective is. And when we first started talking, you said you're always like aware and observing. I mean, it sounds like you were doing that in college, like aware of the environment that you were in, how it was different. But do you think that drove you into like what you studied a little bit?
I think from the time I was little, I knew I wanted to change systems or help people. I think I got that from my dad. He just has always been really into honoring the dignity and worth of every human, and like calling out injustice or differences in how men and women are treated, or, you know, he was just a figure in my life that was so scientific and ethical and kind of black and white almost, and like, this is right and that's wrong. So you do what's right, and you don't play games, and you don't, you know, you just have a moral compass, and you should be striving to make sure that he would say, I think it comes, I don't know where it comes from, the Bible maybe? Like, you're only as good as you treat the least of those among you, or something. There's some saying. And I think I took that to heart and knew even in high school that I would do something like advocating, helping, being of service in some way. I don't know. But sometimes I can get extreme in that, and I'm not sure it's good for me. So, like, I lose sight of the stuff so sometimes I'll say, well, what if the world was okay?
Yeah.
What would I rather be doing? And I have these other kind of creative things that I like that can get pretty completely overshadowed by, like, no, we have a responsibility to, you know, we have a responsibility to make the world better than we inherited it. But that can kind of be a bummer sometimes.
Well, I think it's awesome. And I remember in college, or maybe it was after college, because I don't know how connected we were during college, but I remember having really deep conversations, like young.
Yeah. High school
and through college with you about racism, sexism, inequality generally. I mean, do you remember that? I mean, I feel like you've always had, I think that's true. I think you've always had all of those things at the core of who you are.
Yeah. I mean, when we were growing up in the 90s, it was like, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Yeah.
You know, there was just a lot of that. Anything that you're struggling with is your fault. You know, you're either deserving poor or you're just piece of shit poor.
Yeah.
And if you're piece of shit poor, you know, there was a lot of language even in our high school cohort, or when you move up into college, you had to earn and deserve the right to basic level of survival in the United States. And so when I went to college, I did a lot of studying poverty and race and, you know, whatever critical race theory is. Like, I was studying it long before anyone was talking about it in the, you know.
Yeah, before it was hijacked, Yeah,
before it was hijacked. And I always thought I would like move to Washington, D.C. and write policy. I would love to have worked at a think tank.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you just are saddled with debt and you're like, what job can I get to pay the bills? Because now
So you were like, I'm going to be a social worker.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Even that choice in and of itself.
So, but how did you make your way there? Because then I probably just don't recall, you know, we're in our 20s. So you graduated from Northwestern, and then what did you do?
Well, and I was kind of a mess in college. I always got really good grades, but remember I like kind of got kidnapped?
Yes.
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 And then that kind of messed me
It
up.
was a very real experience, by the
Yes.
way.
So maybe
Very
some other
traumatic
day
experience.
we'll talk about it. But somebody tried to straight up kidnap me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not
So that
like a real trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that mixed in with already like I was probably kind of a problematic drinker in high school to some extent. I just went a little further than the rest of the group. Like
that's probably fair.
You think that's fair? Yeah. Everybody drank a little bit, but I was like Frank the Tank. Like that was kind of my energy around alcohol or anything. You know, if I'm doing something, I'm doing it to the fullest extent.
See, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe I have like rose colored glasses, but I remember, I don't know. I just always remember seeing, maybe because we played sports together or we had these deeper conversations. I mean, I remember that, but I don't remember that like as some other people might, but like as who you were or.
Well, and it was like,
and everyone drank. So it was just like, you know.
Everyone drank.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm naive, but I just don't see my kids on the same path. I think kids today are just different.
No, drinking is, I think I just heard, I don't know the exact statistic, but it's like way down.
Yeah,
it's
we were
just
kind of
way
wild,
down
sneaking
around
out.
youth.
Like I was like a good kid. I got good grades, but I did a lot of stuff my parents weren't aware of. I mean, I literally would take their minivan and drive to Jim's house in the middle of the night.
I think I remember that.
It was wild.
Yeah.
So I already had some little drops of that in me. And then in college had some experiences that I think, so, you know, that kind of derailed me a little bit. And then I graduated from college. Jim and I had reconnected and we got married really young. I was 23. Mm-hmm. So I was a baby. But I loved him. He was home and safe. And I mean, we've just always had a good connection. And it was like, well, he was going to Augustana. He graduated from there. And social work sounded cool because you could do so many different things with it. So you could be a therapist. You could run a nonprofit. You could write policy. And it's a lot of studying human behavior and like how policies shape people's lives. And WashU had an awesome program. I applied to Michigan and Washington University. And we ended up deciding to go to St. Louis because Jim liked the Cardinals and we were children. So
so that was the obvious choice.
And that was cool. We lived in St. Louis. We lived downtown and it was like a ghost town. I mean, you could see a tumbleweed blow through. We lived in like mixed income housing. And then, you know, I worked after school. But even when I was getting my master's, I used to call into Bill O'Reilly's radio show to argue with him.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah. So he'd be like, we've got Annika on the line from St. Louis. And I'd be like trying to prove some point to him about some policy thing he was saying. And so I always liked that. I always liked arguing about policy. Do
you remember you got me that book, The Debt? Do you remember that? I think you were in.
Ooh, maybe.
You were in, I think I was at the coalition and I think you were in school.
Yeah.
And we used to have kind of our deep conversations. And I think you got me that book, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But what do you remember about that time? Other than living downtown and there was nothing there at the time?
I really liked my classes. I loved learning about healthcare policy and how could you write healthcare policy to like shape behavior. Learned a lot about poverty and just how close we all are. I read a book called One Nation Underprivileged. And it really spells out like we are so much closer to living in poverty than we are to being a billionaire, obviously. Yeah. Just how we're all looking up at what we aspire to be, not recognizing how close we are to an eroding social safety net underneath us. Or I just loved learning about all that stuff. I really enjoyed like all the diversity dialoguing stuff. So you'd have, you know, there was a diverse group in my master's program. And, you know, you'd be doing this diversity dialogue with like a really evangelical Christian kid and a Jewish kid. And you're trying to figure out, how do I be a social worker when I need to set aside bias and set aside my own judgment about things, whether I'm going to be a counselor writing policy. And you'd have like the Christian kid being the Jewish kid saying like, do you believe I'm going to burn in fire when I die? Like I'm damned to eternal hell. And then the Christian kid being like, yeah, I do. And then having to sit with like, well, what does that mean? Can you effectively counsel someone if you think they're going to, that you're not equal, that their religion makes them categorically different in the afterlife? And we got to really talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there wasn't necessarily a right answer. Right. But it was, I'm not really good at talking to people about like random, I mean, we talk on the phone every day and it's like very intense right away. Let's just talk about like the real things. And so I loved that environment. Yeah. Because I'm not that fun to like go to dinner with or, like hang out with. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
You mean because these are the things that you're passionate about and that you want to talk about and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would probably be more normal for me to be like, what are your kids going to be for Halloween?
Yeah, well, you do that too. But what?
But I'd probably be like, did you watch the news? What do you think is this policy that's going on in this country?
But those hard conversations.
You love talking about that too.
I
so
do
it
too.
Works out for us.
It does work out for us. But I feel like those hard conversations, and we don't have to transition to the podcast, or we can, and why you started it. But I feel like those difficult conversations are so critical to growth, to learning. They're to me like the fertilizer of growth is just having open and honest conversations. And I remember when my recollection on when you were going to start this podcast, are you okay to talk about it, that now? Cause, my recollection, and I feel like one day it just was up and I was like, oh, you did it. But I do remember us having some conversations leading up to that about some difficult community conversations that you had when you moved back to Rock Island, which we should talk about that, how you made your way back first.
Oh yeah, because so did my master's program.
Yeah.
Jim graduated from Augie. We ended up going to Canada. We lived in Canada for 2 years in Vancouver because he did like a 3D animation program. And then right when he graduated from that, it was 2008, 2009, and the market had kind of crashed and nobody was hiring. And so for a while we were like, oh, we'll live in California or New York where there are these big animation studios. But again, by that time, it's like all we had done is just collect debt. I mean, we just like went to school and collected hundreds of $1,000s of debt. And then the hiring market for creative studios weren't hiring. So we moved home and moved in with my mom and dad. And I got a job.
What did you do when you first moved back
I
here?
worked at Lutheran Social Services in Rock Island.
Okay.
But I did not like that job. I was the therapist for women who had their children removed.
Oh, yeah.
And I bonded with those women. I liked being their therapist, but the whole system I felt was very punitive toward women. I just was not a good fit for me. And then I started working at Edgerton in Davenport. And at that time, we were looking to buy a house in Rock Island, but we had like no credit. Like we could barely get a loan. So we ended up buying this dilapidated house in Bettendorf down by State Street. Mm-hmm. And Jim spent like 6 months completely fixing it up. So he had to redo the walls. He had to redo all the floors. He did the whole house. And he was making mental health videos for a company out of Canada and animating little videos about depression and anxiety. And like I would write the scripts and then he did the animation and then he rehabbed this house. And I think we had to borrow $5,000 from my brother for like the down payment. We paid him back. And we got the first time home buyer's tax credit, which was great. Yeah. That really worked out for us.
Yeah. But you had to find something you could afford. Yeah. So we
bought a house. It was like $72,000.
Yeah. And Jim's doing this sort of remote work before there was remote work and rehabbing the house. And you were still at Lutheran Social Services?
No, at that time I had taken a new job.
Oh, you were at Edgerton. Okay.
Women's Health Center.
And what was the first
So I was just a therapist. So it was like if the patients were seeing their nurse practitioner and they screened for depression or anxiety, they'd say, oh, we have this woman, Annika, who's on staff and you could wander down there and talk to her about your mental health. And so I just had a client base that was being fed through the primary care, basically, like pregnant women, anybody going in for an annual exam, I could get hooked up with them as their therapist.
Okay.
But then the CEO was inching closer to retirement, and I ended up taking his job. So the board hired me as CEO for like the last year or two that I was there.
And what was that like?
It was interesting. It was very all-consuming. So like Nora, I had basically like just had Nora, I don't know how old she was. I remember I only took 3 weeks off when Nora was born. And I was like working from home, you know, a week after I had her.
Oh my gosh.
And I would work really late, and we had transitioned. The reason I got that job is because we went to an electronic health record. I was one of the youngest people on staff. And so through that process, I was put on a team to understand it. And by the end of the training, I just like understood all aspects of the clinic, like checking people in, verifying insurance, how everything worked in the system. And so that's probably why they ended up hiring me.
They're like, you know technology.
I know. I know. I was like a 20-something-year-old social worker, but they're like, you know how to use the computer. You be the CEO.
What do you feel like you learned in that role? Because that ended with you kind of, I mean, oh my gosh, it's such a story. So we went to this electronic health record. I'm running the agency. It's pretty stressful because it's a nonprofit, clinic. Yeah. And we're doing like fundraising to offset the cost of providing affordable health care to women. We have Title X grant money and then Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And there's this program where you can like buy reduced cost birth control, and it's called the 403B program. Mm-hmm. So once you become CEO, like you sign that you're responsible for overseeing all these things. And it was already just tight. You know, money is tight when you're running a nonprofit women's health clinic. Yeah.
And I think what happened was when we went to the electronic health record, when they were filling in all the back end stuff for like drug pricing, something got screwed up. So I'm at this meeting, I've taken up over this job, and I'm in Iowa City at this Title X meeting. And I'm like, thank God for the reimbursement on the 403B drugs. Otherwise, like, I mean, that's such a huge part of our revenue. And the lady gives me this horrified look, and she's like, that's not how that's supposed to work. Like, that is, whatever you're doing is wrong. And there's this other clinic in Iowa that was doing the same thing, and they got in big trouble. And so I went home, I called my dad actually, and I said, Dad, I think we're billing this birth control thing wrong to the state of Iowa. And I'm really nervous because if we don't have that revenue, like there's no way the clinic could survive. And my dad said, you know, you just do the right thing, tell your board the chips will fall where they may. So he was just instantly like, you know, just tell someone.
Yeah.
And so I had to call the board up and was like, we're administering this program wrong. And we were required to pay back the state of Iowa. We were actually required to pay back the state of Illinois, but we tried really hard to like pay them back, and they couldn't get organized enough for us to do it. So I basically like discovered something that hadn't been going right. And I thought I'd be the CEO there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I put myself out of a job because I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, this is, and it was really painful, but community healthcare they acquired us, which made so much more sense from a community standpoint because federally qualified health centers like community healthcare, they get enhanced reimbursement for OB care. So if we did a delivery as a private Medicaid clinic, we were getting like, I don't remember the rates, but like half of what they could get. And so for the community, it actually shouldn't have been sitting with us. When Edgerton started in the 70s, it made a lot of sense. Yeah. By the time we merged with them in what year would that have been, like 2017? Or no, maybe 2015. It really belonged with community healthcare and ended up being a good thing. And
you did the right thing.
So I unraveled the whole private nonprofit of Edgerton and oversaw the merger. I'm proud that we paid back like all the money to Iowa. Yeah. We never missed payroll for staff. We paid every vendor. The only people we didn't pay was Illinois because they like didn't get back to us. It was like, hey, we want to pay you back.
They were just like, yeah, it's all good.
So when we wrapped up, and it was like a partnership with Genesis and Tom Bowman from Community Healthcare, and but that was kind of painful. And I had been overseeing the WIC program, and I was actually super duper pregnant with twins. So
oh my gosh.
as all that's happening, James and Evie are on the way. I end up having like a terrible pregnancy.
Yeah.
And I lose my job, and Jim is
Right.
just getting started in his job. And so I was actually administering the WIC program, lose my job, and we're on Medicaid and recipients of WIC like 4 months later.
Oh my gosh.
And really wouldn't have made it without the WIC for the babies. And I was like 30 something. I mean,
Right.
we were really late bloomers. So.
Well, it depends how you define that. But I think you did the right thing, and your dad's advice is like something I feel like that could stick with anyone when you're in a tough spot. You know, you just say what's going on and let things happen.
Yeah. Even when you know, like, oh God, I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have 4 kids in a hot second.
Yeah.
And my husband's just starting in his second career.
Yeah.
So I am proud that I was like, I'll just blow up my own life to do the right thing.
Yeah, right. Well, you're doing something I think, leadership today could take note of is,
Yeah. But then I had 4 kids at home. I had 4 kids under 5.
So now you've got Lulu,
And-
Nora, and you had the twins.
Yep.
You had a really rough pregnancy.
Yeah. I had HELP syndrome, which is where you have super high blood pressure and like very rough. Like my doctor was like, you shouldn't have any more kids. I was like, okay, duly noted.
This is it. This is it.
Yeah.
But then they came like fairly normal timing, right?
Yeah. I was 37 weeks with those suckers. They were each over 7 pounds. But then I was just home with them and trying to figure out, I just had this deep awareness that A, I could not afford childcare.
Yeah.
And B, I would never be on time for work again in my whole life. So I needed something flexible. And that's when I started Quad City Psychotherapy, just as a soul therapist.
So we should have talked about, everyone probably knows what you do now, but so you started Quad City Psychotherapy while you guys were still in Bettendorf, because we still haven't made our way back over, because you were in Bettendorf, downtown Bettendorf. You've redone the house. You've got the twins. You guys are still there. You've left Edgerton or blown up your job there. Mm-hmm. And you started Quad City Psychotherapy when you guys were still over there?
Yep. It was like 2017.
Yep.
And I was in the Northwest Bank building in Bettendorf, just in a little office by myself in 2017. And then when Lulu was going to first grade, I had wanted, like when we moved back from Canada, I was like, I will only live in Rock Island.
Yeah.
I will only live in Rock Island. I was very stubborn about it. And then for financial reasons, and you just go where you can find a house that you can afford. And so we'd been trying to get back to Rock Island. And one of our good friends was like, our neighbor across the street will probably be selling their house soon. You could be our neighbor. It would be so fun. Why don't you come look at this house? And so we went and looked at it and met with the owner, the owner's kid. And that was going to end up working out for us. So it was like, oh, we can get back to Rock Island.
Yeah.
And so.
But you knew, do you think you knew you wanted to come back?
Yes.
And what was that? So when you moved back from Canada, what was that? I will only live in Rock Island. Where did that come from? What?
Remember when we were in high school and stuff? Like,
was that like, it? There's got to be.
Remember playing at sports at other schools and just being like, only Rock Island's good. Yeah. Rock Island's so cool. Yeah. Which is totally not true, but just that same sense of pride for Rock Island. Like, this is where I belong. Yeah. And I love Rock Island. I love being able to go to the grocery store and just be chill. There is something. You have moved. You have moved to Bettendorf, and that's where you live now. And I'm very happy for you. And it's
but I remember,
and
but
great.
when you moved back, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is maybe because I already know the answer. I remember when you moved back, and you did have this deep sense of wanting to be in Rock Island and raise your kids in Rock Island.
Yeah,
and that came from a very serious place. I feel like a deep place. That is reflective of, I think, and you've described it in some of your interviews on the podcast, of your vision for Rock Island and what you maybe partly shaped by your experience that we've already talked about. But I think, can you talk about that? Because I think you had a really deep conviction that was deeper than like, I'm never going to be a maroon or a bulldog or whatever.
Well, yeah, I just think Jim and I both felt like we got great educations, but also an understanding of what it feels like to be in the world with real people. Yeah. And not that people in other cities aren't real people, and we're very real people. Like, we've both had our ups and downs, and just an authenticity or you're not really like trying to keep up with anybody. You can maybe have more your own quirks and personality. I feel more free here to be myself, maybe. And I want that for my children. And I do see that for my children. I mean, all my kids have really solid groups of friends it makes me happy. Like, when I see my kids with their little groups of friends and it's all sorts of different little kids, I get like super happy about that.
Yeah.
I want them to love people, and I don't know. I feel like I'm not articulating it well, but.
Well, no, you've said that your vision for Rock Island is a city for all people.
Yeah.
And to the extent that your kids are absorbing that and you're watching that happen, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I want my kids to feel like I'm one among many. Yeah. I'm one person among many, and I'm in a community, and this life is about all of us, not just me. I feel like the me can be a little toxic. I don't know. I feel like there's something, I felt very grounded growing up in Rock Island, even going off to school with a lot of kids who had a lot. I almost felt like it was harder for them because they thought they had to have that to be happy or to be good. That the stuff you achieve on the outside is what's going to give you a grade, like a shiny token, or make you feel like you can finally be proud of yourself. And I feel like when you grow up with lots of different people and you realize how good they are, whether they have a certain pair of tennis shoes or not, it also helps you feel that for yourself. That like, oh, my goodness does not originate from my bank account.
Yeah.
Or, a title or.
But also there's a richness there. I mean, and you've had awesome people on, and I think we should talk about, I think we can like transition into why you started the podcast and some of your guests, but there's a richness here too. It's not just, I feel like a lot of the conversation can seem fluffy. Like, well, yeah, it's like a city for all people and Rock Island's diverse. And even when you and I have talked about the positives of living here and what that would look like, and we did decide to move mostly because of family, but that tends to come up. But I think Rock Island also there's just a lot of smart people here doing really awesome things. There are a lot of great businesses here. And I think when we were growing up, we saw that thriving a little bit more. But I think you believe in that spirit, and that richness is built from the people who live here. And if your kids can absorb some of that, they'll take that out into the world, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really have to go somewhere else to find great people.
Yeah.
They're here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are great people.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know. I don't even know how to totally articulate it, but I feel like I'm still doing that today, even in talking about stuff related to the city or the stuff that gets fired up in me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like even as we're recording this, I'm coming off the back end of like real intense emotions about the ordinance around homelessness. Yeah. And, I've even kind of backed off a little bit in the last 2 weeks of social media, and because I can get so worked up. And I think in some ways defending Rock Island or, whatever sense I have about like this place and needing people to know that it is good and it is special is about some of the stuff that we felt maybe in high school too, of like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, what is already here is good. And the fact that you can't see that, I'm not talking to you, but like the fact that some decision maker or person can't see that is their problem, not the problem of the people who are trying to create more justice and opportunity and fairness And maybe it is that thing from high school when we were like patted on the head for trying to have ideas about equality.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of losing in it because you're fighting against systems that defend the status quo. And so there's also a lot of defeat. Like I'm feeling very defeated in the moment that we're sitting down together, which if we would have talked a month ago, I was like, Jess, we're going to do everything.
We're going to change the world. Well, maybe that is a good point to talk about why you started the podcast. Because I think sometimes you have to go back to that, right? Like, why am I doing this? Why did I decide to do this? So why did you decide to do this? Or what, or is it rooted in something or some event or conversation?
You might have to help remind me too.
Okay.
I'm like, what has even happened in the last? Well, I think partially it's the world and a feeling of being overwhelmed by everything at these bigger levels that feels unstoppable or too big to confront or too big to change. And so the idea of like focusing on things happening within one's own community feels more manageable. It feels real. It feels like there you can have real connections with real people and talk about things that are actually happening in your community. And that feels more empowered than what's happening internationally or nationally even. So I think part of it was grasping at a way to have more agency in my life over things that I care about. I think part of it is just being a therapist for a long time. I've been listening a lot. Yeah. So maybe feeling like, oh, maybe I have some things I want to say.
Yeah.
And I like writing and I like storytelling. And so I think initially it also felt like creative, just listening and sharing and, just this more naive, like I love Rock Island and I'm just going to talk about all the great things about Rock Island. But then as I got into it and started talking to people, I did have awareness in myself of like, I don't know if I agree with that, or how do I feel about that? And then very quickly it was like drug into, I deeply care about these things and I need to speak truth to power or resist.
Well, it's interesting.
And that was not what I was wanting to do, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
And then I get all riled up and I'm like,
I mean, I think, what I hear you saying about, it's interesting you say that you were, you've been a therapist for so long and you're doing a lot of listening. But when I listen to the podcast, what I often think is she is such a good listener. Like I have got to get that together and be like a little bit better at that. You're so, you're just so attentive with the people who have been on.
I'm a professional listener.
You're a professional listener, but you really brought that to bear, I feel like here, which is it's a superpower really, I feel like that you have, in addition to, I think a superpower that you have of just pure empathy and taking people for who they are, which I think comes through in the podcast. And so your first guest, Don, right?
Don
Wooten. Why did you choose him? Maybe that's got some answers in it because he's a really cool guy.
I mean, I think I chose him in part because Roald Tweet, who had Rock Island Lines, went to my parents' church. Yeah. And he was really good friends with Don Wooten. And so together, the two of them were kind of these Rock Island storytellers and interviewers of people. And so maybe in the same vein of, I named it Rock Island Line, which is a play on his was Lines. And I guess Don Wooten interviewed me when I was CEO of Edgerton. Mm-hmm. And that's what I kind of envisioned it would more be, was this back and forth interview, like, just tell me about your life. And maybe more what therapy feels like, which is you're allowing the other person to be a blank slate. You don't bring a ton of yourself to the conversation. It's highlighting the community. It's highlighting what people are doing. And so I think Don felt like a good first guest because I think that's what he's done. And he's written articles for like the Quad City Times. And I was just kind of interested in him. I don't know.
Yeah. And he's got a deep history, it seems like, to make sense in the storytelling that you were kind of setting out to do.
And he's also a person that I think I have some things in common with, in sense of I have an idea and I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
I just had an inspiration to start a podcast.
And
I'm
you
doing it.
You did. That's what I'm saying. I think one day I was like, oh, it's up. You're like, yeah, it's up. Just go to the website. And I was on it right away.
Yeah. I don't stew in a lot of.
No.
I'm more like the ripcord has been pulled. We are out of the plane.
Yeah.
Halfway down. I'm
going.
like, do I have time for this? This might be a lot.
Because you start this and you've
Yes.
got 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a growing like psychotherapy practice and a number of therapists under your wings or under your business, your practice. So you have a full-time job.
Yes.
And 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you kind of just went for it, which is super courageous.
Well, but like everyone in this capitalist system, I've kind of been grinding my whole life. Like, got to make money, have to pay back the school debt, need to think about the kids. Okay, we got to get a bigger house to fit all these children in. Thinking about college, like we don't always get to do things we want to do. We're even with a lot of privilege and freedom, I've still had to just like make money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, survive, coming out of losing my job at Edgerton, it was kind of scary. It was like, why are we 30 something? And why we've both been working our whole lives or going to school. So getting to the place of having some security in the last couple of years because of how lucky I've been to have my business and have really awesome people who I work with, and I have a little bit of freedom. So I think part of it was also like, what would I do if I didn't have to grind, if I didn't have to hustle, what would I want to do?
So that is like kind of coming at you because you did take like a beat. You took a minute, like a year or 2 before that to just live your life. But like coming out of COVID and then the world kind of shifting and having this sense that like I need to focus on my community. That's the place that I can have impact. That's the place that I can create change. I remember you talking to me a lot about that. Because I would call in despair. Like, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do?
What's right in front of you. You can do something about that. So it's sort of like this timing of committing yourself to that. And then your creative side, which you definitely have. You've written and done a number of creative things in your life. And all of that kind of coming together. And then you just did it.
And I was thinking a little bit about politics.
Yeah.
Jim was like, hell no. And and I don't think I'd really like it.
I think you should do it, but yeah.
I just don't know if I have I'm very transparent. I feel like as I've gotten into even just interviewing people and stuff, it's like, I'm not good at chit chat, but I'm also not good at like, I don't know, back conversations or not telling people everything I'm thinking all the time.
Yeah.
Or kind of playing a game. Like if you had to like get votes for something and you got to like be friends with that person. I just could never do that.
Yeah.
My dad could never do that. I think it hurt him in some ways in his life because he couldn't.
The politics
of things, he could not negotiate because he was just like, I'm here and this is the right thing to do and this is what we will do. And he didn't have a lot of, I feel like I lack a similar amount of finesse in, let me tell you a little bit about what I think so that I can like be your friend. Yeah. And then I'm just not good at that.
Well, it's not all strategic. It's not all, I want something. I'm trying to get something. And so I'm going to have this conversation to get it.
Yeah.
There's more of a desire to be authentic in communicating what you think is right.
I was actually thinking the other day that politicians should have to wear body cams. I was thinking this the other day.
Good, yeah.
Because, if you're in a position where you have so much power and you need transparency, what if outside of your home you had to wear a body cam so that if you went to lunch with someone but then I was like, but what if someone called them at night at their house? Like they're like putting their kid to bed, like, sorry kiddo, got to turn on my body cam. It's totally on
like forced authenticity or like truthfulness, which we're desperate for. But
I want to know what those conversations are. Because even as I've like talked to people about the homelessness ordinance or somebody's called me about something, I'm like, oh, there's all these little conversations that go on.
But let's talk about that a little bit because I think one of the things, and I don't know if you got any feedback when you asked for it, but one of the things that I think you've brought up to me is people saying or expressing some sense that these conversations are political, or the podcast itself is political, whether, separate and apart, for me at least, from whether you are a political person, like whether the podcast is, and maybe having difficulty getting people on who think that you may not agree with them, which, maybe that's true or not true. But I just think we're living in a culture where, for example, the homelessness issue, that is not a political issue. That is a human rights issue. That is a human dignity issue. It's being and been politicized, but it's not a political issue. And so to the extent, to me, that you're talking about that here, I mean, I think that's just a community conversation, and this is the proper place to have that conversation. And only through having those conversations can we come to a solution together. And I think that came up in your conversation with Dr. Ford, and he talked about those conversations with stakeholders that are difficult, and there's tension there, but that tension is necessary for everyone to move forward. And it doesn't mean that you're in conflict. It means that you're coming together to solve problems. And I remember, again, in our early conversations, you talking about loving Rock Island because, in part, I think there was someone that you had a disagreement with in the community about something,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to have like an open conversation with him. And I think you're way better at this than me, but you're like, yeah, I just think I have to live with this person. I want to know what he thinks. He has a right to exist here as much as I do. And I'm just like, well, he's wrong. And but I think it's easy to like dismiss people, especially today, that we disagree with. But I think you have a gift of hearing and seeing those people and being willing to sit with them and have those conversations that are tense and difficult. And maybe that's what this is here, but it's not political. It's just revealing tension.
Well, and I think I've shot myself in the foot a little bit on that, because when I started, I did have this goal of bringing in this like internal family systems therapy lens. I talked about it a lot in early podcast episodes, but it does require that whatever the facilitator, you do, you are a blank slate. It's more like therapy. And I've had too hard of a time doing that. So I've pretty clearly broadcasted how I feel about things because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I can't stop. And so, but I think it happened in tandem with going into it. The idea was like, it would be so cool to facilitate this conversation.
Yeah.
Or to bring this person in to talk about a hard thing. But I realized people who don't have a reason, like they don't have a reason to do that, are very reluctant to do that in a public format. And I totally get that. But some of the more private conversations I've had with leaders who are maybe opposed to the homeless, or basically their take is like, it is bad for business to have homeless people downtown, so we need to get them out of the downtown by any means necessary. They would maybe say that to me in private, but they won't come on here and talk about it because they don't want to be canceled. Like, you can't get people to come on and be vulnerable. And I had a friend from high school who was going to come on and have a conversation about an argument the two of us had like years ago on Facebook.
Yeah.
And he was into it, but then he's kind of like shied away from it now.
Yeah.
So like if you have everything to lose and nothing to gain by having these sorts of conversations, why would you come on here? And it's mostly people who need systems of power to respond to them that are coming on here. Mm-hmm. With the exception of Dylan. And Dylan drives me nuts, but he will talk out loud when he has things to lose and things to gain. And I do appreciate that. Because we disagree, but he's like really the only person in a position of power who's been willing to come on and be like, yeah, I'll just like openly disagree with you. And we can have controversy. And I mean,
because we're all dynamic human beings and we have different thoughts and feelings. I mean, I think, having Mayor Harris on, having the city council members that you've had on, to me, that's a critical piece of connecting the community, or helping the community see the impact of city governance on their day-to-day life. And I think you and I had a conversation once about that disconnect. And I think I was reading something someone was saying, like, I can tell you what Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks about something, but I don't know who's on my school board.
Right.
And so one of the things, and again, I think this is not politic. I think it's just community and participation and engagement, is to have city council members, the mayor, have those people come on, because it's just like, oh, that's who's representing me. And this is where they live and this is their story. Even knowing that, I think, empowers people. I think it's one of the things you've achieved in all of that. But
I currently think Dylan's really the only one who wants to absorb pushback.
Yeah.
Because I've even emailed counselors about just, hey, this is what I want, or can you give me this information, or can I ask a question? And it's kind of don't criticize what the council is doing. A little bit of a back off message, or you're not wanted here.
Yeah.
You're not. So I wonder if council members in the future will even come on. So I needed to do the thing that I don't think I can do, which is guard my own take on things and be more neutral. I should have done that right from the beginning. And that ship has kind of sailed.
I disagree.
You do?
Yeah.
Don't you think I've inserted...
I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I'm just telling you.
But don't you think I've inserted too much of my own being into the podcast, where it's I have strong feelings?
No, I think it reflects that your podcast is alive. It's a living thing that you created. You courageously and vulnerably created this thing. Put yourself out there to accept criticism. And it's living and breathing, and it's going to evolve like all living and breathing things. And hopefully it finds a place in that. I mean, I think anybody who's podcasted would say their podcast has changed or taken different shapes and forms. And I feel that way about politics. I feel that way about, I think we've disengaged, and you know me, don't let me get on my media criticism, but I think we've moved into a place with the media, as an example, where we're just the answer is to be neutral, not to be truthful, not to have hard conversations based in fact. It's to present myself as a neutral party, to the detriment of our democracy at the present moment, in my thought. So I think what you've done is you've created this living, breathing thing that we just can all, or should all, embrace, that it's going to be that. And the living, breathing part of it is some of that tension. It's I'm going to totally botch this. But I think, Martin Luther King talked about, I think in Beyond Vietnam, the exposing of that tension to the natural elements of air and light is the only way to heal. And so I feel like what's happening is you're exposing some tension. You're bringing some of it because that's who you are. And that's okay. And it's just a living, breathing organism. And we'll see what happens with it. But I don't think you should feel that you shouldn't continue down that path. And hopefully people will just choose to come on to have those conversations, because you've had a lot of guests talk about where Rock Island's at and the growth that needs to happen. I mean, maybe it starts with these conversations.
Yeah. I still feel very hopeful about Rock Island. And I feel like the people that I'm interviewing, I'm yes, you go out there and do your thing and shape our community and bring into the community the things that it needs to thrive. But I feel more frustrated than I think I thought I would feel when I started the podcast.
What frustrates you the most, in doing the podcast, or just the issues that have come up?
Even with the Century Woods thing.
Yeah.
That I can't go there and maybe it's my privilege. I'm what? Why don't you want me? But just that situation that people don't have working smoke detectors, and it's been 2 years, and you can have the whole city come to a meeting there and they still don't have working smoke detectors. And I reach out to the city inspections team and don't really hear back from them. And so as I've aligned myself with causes for people who don't have voices and are not well represented, I think I'm experiencing also, what does that feel like? And it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm but this is wrong. Why aren't you just doing it?
Right.
well, we got this system and this thing's at play. And, you know, it's really frustrating to not have a voice as I'm doing a podcast.
Yes.
So that's not really the podcast stuff, but the stuff
Yeah.
I'm doing in the community on the side with this podcast that go in line with the things I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And really, I'm probably going to take like a little break from recording a weekly podcast and dig in a little bit more to some of these things that I'm interested in around housing, you know, the downtown property ownership, like stuff like that. I just find myself feeling frustrated and like I wanted to just be a positive Rock Islander, just like this place is awesome. Everyone should live here.
Well, that comes across. I feel like that comes across and
But can I do both? Can I be like, this place is awesome, you should live here, and also be actively working to dismantle systems that just don't serve the general Rock Island population?
Yeah.
Can you do both? Can you be like, this is a great place and I'm having big problems with these parts of it?
I mean, isn't that being an American?
Yeah.
Right now? Like, we joke about, people joke about leaving, but that's what it is. It's like, I love this place, I guess.
Do we? Do we love it?
But no,
I think we
love
it.
this place, but I mean, we got some work to do. I feel like that's being, I think you can do both. Or what did Pastor Jennifer told you, like, some of the hard work in community building is being that, what did she say? Like just a part of the rainbow. And it may not be the piece that you may not be solving policy problems, but you might be feeding people. Mm-hmm. And maybe what you're describing is like the podcast is part of the rainbow. It's giving people a voice. It's raising issues that the powerless, may not be able to articulate at city council or have someone else hear. Or maybe it's just, having a positive conversation about what's happening in Rock Island to sort of rebuild, re-energize, re-engage the community. But then you're also on the side pounding on a door, saying we have to care for the least of these in our community. So if you think you can do both, I think the answer is yes.
Well, I think what I'm going to do is maybe space out the conversations a little bit to make my life not feel so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then have a little bit more time and focused attention to try to like rein it in a little bit and just pick a couple things that are very interesting to me to write stories about or to bring attention to, the Rock Island Line being a podcast, but also maybe just lately I've had this thought about, because, I always want to work in a think tank. I'm like, don't know what that is. Me and you both.
Let's do it. Anybody else out there want to start a think tank locally? We're in.
But even like holding a line, like the Rock Island Line,
mm-hmm.
which is this place where, yes, we can have conversations and I can understand you better. But I think the thing we often discuss is, but where's the line when like your way of thinking or the policies that you want to enact are a human rights violation?
Yeah.
Where they actually harm people. It's, you have a right in this country to say and to think and to have freedom to whatever's going on in your brain is free to go on in there.
Yeah.
And I want to understand it, but also maybe just knowing my own line of like, I'm so glad to more deeply understand the way your brain works, but like, please, I don't want any of the policies that would come out of your brain to be put onto me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think I spend a lot of time trying to be like, how do I figure out the other person? It's probably a safety strategy.
Like ways. If I understand them, I know what to do. Or we
could all get along. We could be at peace with one another. I mean, I just want peace and,
Well, let's talk about that too, because I think we've talked about a tension that maybe you have. I mean, just this idea that if you are committed to social justice, if you're committed to anti-poverty, if you're committed to racial justice, some of these other things that seem, what do they say? Like Pollyannish, or even we've talked about like, oh, it's so cute that you care about this stuff. Which is the opposite of my experience in working on those issues in the past. People working on that stuff work hard, if not harder than people in private practice. Not to disparage anyone, but you are also a business owner in this community, and you are earning money and bringing money into this community, into the Quad Cities and Rock Island. You have a business in Illinois and in Iowa, or business properties and businesses in Illinois and Iowa. And that's equally.
I called the city to see about this building next door that's for sale. No one will call me back.
Oh, really? Right here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that. Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, ooh, maybe I could do something in there, but no one's called me back yet. So maybe they'll hear it on the podcast and be like, maybe we should call her back.
We should call her back and see if she wants to buy it. But what do you think about that? Because I feel like, part of caring about Rock Island and being here and doing what you're doing is caring about, and this kind of came up with the Mylan Bottom stuff too, I think. It's just this idea that like we have to do these things to bring businesses and maybe to a certain extent the homelessness ordinance, although I think that's just gross misstatement of how you solve that issue. But, how do you drive an economy, a small economy? I forget what Mayor Harris called it, but like this planet. Didn't he say like Rock Island's like planet, the analogy, like a planet?
We have to go to the moon.
We have to go to the moon to get stuff. How do you grow this planet and not force people to the moon or even to Moline to get what they need? And, how do you do that and also commit yourself to some of the things that you're talking about? What do you think you've learned in conversations with people on the podcast about that? And what are your ideas?
Well, I think my general perspective on economic growth is like trickle up. It's like the opposite of trickle down, because even as a business owner in the Quad Cities, and I sit on the Chamber of Commerce, like legislative, a lot of it's focused on what do we do for businesses so that they can be successful. But we forget that we need consumers who are healthy and doing well.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that I think about the economy is in large part, like, how do you make sure that everyday Rock Islanders are not struggling in poverty? Because the reason that Rock Island businesses might not be doing well is because the people who live here are not doing well.
Yeah.
You need people who are financially healthy enough to come into your restaurant and buy your food, and to go into your mental health clinic and get services, and to come to you and get legal services. Like, if we live in a two-tiered economy where, so many people are really struggling financially, it's going to affect businesses. And so I think where Rock Island often misses the boat is by overlooking her people and trying to attract a small business, or then the business comes here, then there's not the foot traffic and those businesses struggle.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the solution is investing in the people. And I see the homeless folks that are down here as resources and assets. And that's not something I think the business owners down here have recognized. Like, two of the guys I've met in the last month, one now has a job at a Rock Island company because he was a machinist before he had bronchitis and got really sick, lost his job. Another guy had a CDL license and is now driving a truck, and that's in 2 months. That turnover,
right?
They're assets. People are assets.
Yeah, they're not problems. Yeah. As I heard one council member say, we have a homelessness problem, and I thought, those are human beings. They're not problems. It's
hard too, because like someone sent me a bunch of pictures of homeless people hanging out. First of all, it's like, was that person homeless, or was it just a dude standing on the street? Like, I don't know.
There's that, yeah.
But like, look at all of these people and look at the pictures of them.
Yeah.
And a few of them were people sleeping in a doorway. One of the guys I know, I've taken little audio clips of him. Hopefully he's getting into housing in the next 3 weeks, but he's 62 and he's sleeping in a doorway and he could die.
Right.
And it's like, Rock Island can't stand this. And so it's like, I just don't know. I don't always know how to talk to those people about solutions. But I'm also like, some of the pictures were just people standing outside, just standing up outside looking poor. I mean, that is a huge percentage of the population of your city.
Right.
And so if you want to pretend that that doesn't exist, business development is not going to happen.
Right.
I don't understand it. Like, you want to live in a fantasy world where 1 in 5 of your residents isn't in poverty.
Yeah.
That's not Rock Island.
Well, and then to drive out the service providers who are propping you up essentially in that space and doing the job that you're not doing to care for those people, to house them, to feed them, to provide them services potentially. It just seems like the opposite thing to do,
and to not be smart about it, to not say, let's have a comprehensive overall plan to address homelessness that's going to include, I started writing one, and I'm so frustrated with the city that I'm like, why am I going to write a plan for them to address homelessness? But I gave one council member, I'm like, if you have an issue with this guy, call me. I don't know where I'll be, but like, I'll try to come help you. But like, I have no role in this. I have no job. But there are people who have jobs. It's the service providers. But what's happened is the whole city is like, if there's any gap, they're blaming the service provider. But they're just one teeny sliver of the solution. There are the law enforcement issues. The city needs a comprehensive strategy. They need to actually put dollars toward some sort of housing, housing first approach. Like, there's just so many layers of it, and no one has done anything. They're like, we need a regional approach. So I ask city council, like, well, have you talked to any leaders in other cities?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not our job. Like, whose job is it
Whose
then?
job is it?
It's your job.
Whose job is it to build this regional approach that you want? I mean, when I hear we need a regional approach, I hear we feel we're the only ones burdened or addressing the homelessness issue. And didn't you tell me they were like, at one point bringing home, like, other police or other cities were bringing unhoused people here for services or something like that? So maybe there's just some bad blood around that or something. I don't know.
But I'm sure it happened when the other side of the river had the overflow shelter. I'm sure it happened in reverse.
Sure.
But it seems like it would be wiser to be like, okay, let's have a team from each city that is in contact with a team from the other cities to say, what's our plan? Here's our commitment for the year 2026.
Right.
What's yours going to be? And how do we marry those together? And I don't know, Jess.
And to lean into the experts like Dr. Ford, Project Now,
the third place.
The third place. Lean into those organizations as partners and say, we're really like, what do we do here? How can we develop a comprehensive plan? Can you assist us with doing that? We want to take the right step here instead of what they've done. Yeah.
But that's where some of my own conflict comes, because I am a people pleaser and I like peace and I like friendship and I like good times. And so, anytime you're out there and you're just like, here's my take.
Yeah.
You invite negativity and people not liking you and people being frustrated with you. And I don't like how that feels, but I probably won't stop.
Or people being critical of your podcast.
Yeah,
which,
people being critical.
I'm really
defensive of.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But it's just kind of, I thought when I started it, it would be like just fun and upbeat and positive.
Well, I think it is. I think it generally is. I mean, you look at, we'll say 20, your 20 guests. A lot of those conversations have been so positive. You have about 100 listeners, right? So that's, I mean, I think that's a pretty good number for a community this size.
Yeah. And YouTube viewers.
Although
the last 2 weeks I haven't been able to get videos up because I've been so overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of hit or miss.
Well, you got to be gentle with yourself with that. But I feel like the conversations have been upbeat and positive. I mean, there's so many community highlights that are awesome. I can't even remember them all. Do you have favorites? You probably can't pick favorites, but do you have any that stand out in terms of
It was really cool to talk to Ashley just because we went to high school with him, Mayor Harris.
Yeah.
So just to think like, oh, there's this new era of leadership.
Yeah.
And then to be like, wait a second, Mayor Harris is not, we have a weak mayor system. So that's been interesting to watch too, just the ways in which he's tried to like assert power, influence, but in the way that our government works at the local level, that's really challenging. So that's been interesting to watch, and it'll be cool to do like a follow-up episode with him.
Yeah.
I've really liked all the guests. I really liked Atticus, like learning about AI was super interesting. And I love Nest Cafe. I think that's such a cool model of kind of social entrepreneurship.
Right.
Or blending, taking care of people and living in community together and in a way that feels good for everyone and like everyone benefits from. It's reciprocal. It's non-hierarchical. Like, I love all that stuff. I love it all.
The guy who runs
I'd love to
the
have
green store.
Yeah,
that was
Demetrius.
really cool. That was really positive conversation, I feel like.
But I've invited on like the head of the Republican,
Yeah.
I've invited all the alder people. I would love to talk to people who have different ideas about. I'd love the alder people who really strongly disagree about the homelessness stuff to come on, like more of them.
Yeah.
To talk about, okay, like you want to pass this ordinance, but what are you going to do to address the poverty that exists in your city? But I don't feel like anyone is really game for being like, that sounds like a good time. I'm going to go on the podcast and talk about that.
I mean, it probably depends, but I mean...
But, I was thinking like, maybe not now, but if I keep doing this, maybe a year from now as people are running for things, I could host a Q&A.
That would be so good for the community.
Because I think for communities to be healthy, you have to hear from leaders, and they have to be willing to answer hard questions. I asked hard questions of one of the alder people on Facebook, private messenger, and I'm not their friend on Facebook anymore. They removed me. So it's like, if you can't answer hard questions from the people who elect you, that's problematic.
Yeah.
If you just come to meetings and are quiet and then go home, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
So that's like, those are some of my hot takes that are bubbling up inside me where I'm like, but this is going to make it harder to like lightheartedly interview people.
But you've probably had 5 like clergy, or like maybe you didn't interview them in that capacity.
Maybe 3.
But
Rob,
isn't
Laura, Jennifer, Dwight? You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, it must be all my Lutheran roots.
It's all your Lutheran roots are just coming out. But I feel like all of those conversations have had hopefulness in them. People doing faith work that, are in this community who are really awesome people. Some who are from here, some who are not. Those conversations, I think, have been hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think they've reflected some of the really positive things, like, the homelessness stuff. Like, a lot of those churches and organizations are feeding people. They're running programs for people, other programs for people. I feel like that's all empowering, positive stuff. You talked with Mayor Harris about economic growth and development, but maybe more of those conversations and just, but I think everyone's been so great.
Yeah. And I'm going to probably take a little break and just get everybody lined up for January, except I have like a couple I might sprinkle in there.
Yeah.
But hoping to talk to a realtor, someone who does stuff with like a land bank. So I have some ideas of ways to kind of round out the conversation and just maybe more acknowledging it's having cool conversations, but definitely my thoughts and kind of ideas about Rock Island infused into it because I can't help myself.
Yeah.
And so if people don't like that, then they can suck it.
Well, they don't have to listen. I mean, I think that is just, I think it's reflective of just a larger societal, hopefully, growth and transition that we're moving out of, which is to understand that in ignoring those things, and pretending that we all have neutrality, because we just don't. Like, we're all stagnant.
Yeah.
Or we're going backwards. So we have to do that to move forward as a community. And I feel like that's what, when you started the podcast, you reflected to me, was just, I think this local engagement is just going to require conversations and voices.
Yeah, I'm going to catch up this weekend. I'm going to take a work weekend because
Okay.
I'm so far behind, but I have to do the last 2 city council meetings. So I'm going to put those out.
Oh, yeah.
And I've met really cool people because I've had lunch with a lot of people that haven't wanted to necessarily be on the podcast, but it does make me feel hopeful about like, oh, this character's over here doing this and this person's, there are a lot of great just people at work, and that does make me feel hopeful. Because like just before we leave, what are we going to do about the world?
What are we going to do? Should we dive into one of our morning coffee conversations?
I don't know. How do they even start? Like, what are you doing driving to work? Well, did you see this?
Did you see this today?
Which is probably how like our moms would get on the phone and talk to each other.
No, I think what other sort of, you're going to take a break, probably going to start spreading out the timing of these, but what other thoughts? I know you've been struggling with this, like, how do I play into all of this and do I continue doing that? I think I think you kind of know the answer.
Yeah.
But what do you hope for in continuing to do it? What do you hope for the podcast, but also like Rock Island, because they're kind of maybe it's the same.
I hope to keep highlighting neato burritos who live here, neat people who live in Rock Island and are doing interesting things like Bev's Yarn Barn, or, just talking to people that are interesting and engaging and trying to get cool stuff going, and just highlighting the talent and the personalities. And so I do hope to do that, but I guess I also hope to push more on policy, because while I don't think I would be a good politician, I think I'm smart and I have a tiny bit of time on my hands, and I like, Jim will be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm reading through the budget for Rock Island. And he's like, why?
Having the time of my life.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just am. I think strong cities, strong governments require transparency, require people who ask why, questions, people bugging them. It just makes you better. If you have to reflect on your behavior and your choices and how you're moving money around and why are you doing that? The ordinances, not suspending the rules and pushing things through. I think that one of the worst things in the world for me is social media. That's like one really tricky part of this, is that is where a lot of stuff gets like pushed out, and it's like really bad for me with my history of addiction, and it's just not a good zone for me. So I'm still trying to navigate that, because that's been a place where I feel like I've been able to like highlight an issue and get someone to pay attention.
Right.
But that's like really bad for my mental health. So
you and everybody else.
I'll pay Lulu to do it.
That's
I'll be
why
like,
I'm
go
not on
put
there.
a post up about. So cool stories.
Yeah.
But also maybe more in-depth stories and analysis on things that I am frustrated about.
Yeah.
And I will, be a little, what is the word?
I don't know. Be in somebody's bonnet.
Yeah. Yeah, which is like hard for me because I want people to like me.
Yeah.
And I don't like in the Midwest that if you're asking questions, you're seen as being like difficult.
Yeah. Right.
I'm going to be difficult. I'm going to be a difficult person.
I think it's just an example of, again, I hope we're moving away from this sense that you have to be neutral, or that you have to be like, claim to be an independent to like get someone to listen to you, because otherwise you're just so extreme. It's like, no, we all have thoughts and opinions. They all matter. We can all come to the table and have tough conversations, and that's how we're all going to grow and go forward. I think what I hear you describing is being engaged. Being
engaged, yes. Sometimes being engaged comes across as being difficult, but it's actually just being engaged.
Yeah.
What's really cool is I think there is a group of people who are just getting more engaged in Rock Island. Like, if you're kind of paying attention to who's posting about stuff, there is like a good group of people that's just kind of like, maybe we can shift this power structure a little bit, and I'm here for it, and I like it, and I'm going to support it.
Yeah. But also that's going to those conversations cultivate growth, and because you're only going to have growth if you have people who are committed.
Yeah.
Right.
And commitment and that engagement, maybe it requires like a little elevation of feelings. because I've been like in kind of a weird headspace the last month because I love Rock Island so much, and getting more involved then highlights your frustration. Yeah. And then, you know, I have parts of me that are like, well, I'm just going to go hide in a hole because everything is stupid and nothing matters. You know, I can have a day like that or a couple days, and then it's like, no, I love this place and I want to be a part of my community, and I want goodness and fairness and justice, and that's just who I am. So I'll keep doing that.
Well, I hope you do. Everyone in Rock Island should hope you do. I think most people do. And I think you're an example of commitment and community and giving voice to people and empowering other people to have a voice in their community. So you just keep charging ahead.
And I'll just run it by you in the morning.
And you'll just run it by me just to make sure it's not too far.
And you're my like safety lever of, Jess, if you find me in an office with like red string going from bulletin board where I'm in some conspiracy that doesn't exist and, you know, I've lost my mind, you can come pull me out of it.
No, you're the, you know, what did I say this a couple weeks ago? The Brene Brown, like the vulnerability thing, you know, it's just like her take on that Roosevelt quote. You know, you're the person in the arena making this happen, and there are people in the cheap seats who are going to toss their thoughts, but you're in here doing it. Yeah. And I think you're an awesome example for the city, and you make me proud to be from Rock Island. And you just got to keep chugging along.
I will. And chugging along like choo-choo.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. Well, I love you, and I appreciate your, you know, always talking to me. And I don't know. I feel like with friendship, like one person can be high and the other low, or kind of struggling in different seasons, and you need your friends to mirror back to you, like, you know, like, you're not an embarrassing
This is what
weirdo.
you're doing. This is what you're doing. That's so great. And you're putting yourself out there, which, it's a vulnerable thing to do. And it, you know, leaves you kind of open and out there for criticism. But
and then it's just growing, and who knows what shape it'll take. And like when I started doing this, I had zero idea that I would get embroiled into issues around people being housed.
Yeah.
No idea. I wasn't looking to be involved in that, but it instantly captivated me because that's where I've always lived.
But it's also what's going on.
It's what's going on.
It's what's going on.
And the universe can kind of guide you in that way. Yeah. And, you know, but I appreciate having you to talk to me and ground me and, you know, to do this with me. Let me tell my Rock Island story. I don't know if I told it very well, but
I think you did.
Yeah.
I think you did.
My Rock Island story is a love story. It's a story.
It is a love story. It's a story. You have probably the deepest roots of any of your guests so far, if we're calling you a guest today. And I just think it's reflective in your commitment and what you're doing now. So.
Well, just like my grandparents falling in love in Rock Island.
Yeah, and then you
Jim
did.
And
it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy.
You know, just I so deeply love my little family I've created. Yeah. And so it's a love story. But even in any good family, there's difficulty and stuff that has to be called out. And like, hey, you know, we'd be a healthier, happier family if we didn't do this behavior or something. Like, you got to be able to look at the good, the bad, the ugly, in order to deeply love something. Yeah,
and let the wounds show so they can be healed. Yeah, and then we all grow together. Well, is that how we end this thing?
Maybe. I don't know. How long have we been talking? 2 hours. That's pretty standard.
I'm trying to think if there's anything we didn't talk about. I probably had some notes. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well,
what comes next? We've talked about that a little bit.
Anything else?
I mean, I think
Is that your ChatGPT talking to you?
No, it's my. Oh. That's my. What do you call it? My Siri. Have you changed your Siri voice?
Mm-mm. I don't do Siri.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't have it turned on. Well, maybe like if there's stuff people want or guests they think would be good.
Oh,
or
yeah.
content they want me to look into or tips they want to send me. Not that I'm a journalist, but I will play one on television.
Which you're not. Actually, I did have that at one point when we were talking about doing this. So just kind of talk about with you. We did talk about this, or maybe I mentioned it, is to talk with you about that, because I think you're not.
No.
And that's not what this is. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm just a lady with opinions.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because podcasters aren't journalists. They're not. And
well,
so
I don't fact check things.
Yeah.
I don't like heavily research guests to make sure that I deeply understand everything about them. I don't. Like, in the moment, I don't have a team. It's just me. I don't have someone that edits the podcast. I'm doing all this by myself. So I don't think I'm a journalist. I'm just a lady talking to people.
But I mean, has that been a point of tension, or have people called you that or said like, oh, well, you're a journalist, like, or you're pretending to be, or, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what someone would say. I did get like
an angry email from someone saying that I should have fact checked something, and that, you know, basically I'd open myself up to lawsuits or legal things by not fact checking what people were trying to say on the podcast. But I looked into it and we never mentioned any names, and I think I'm fine.
Yeah.
But there's like vulnerability there too, that just anytime you put yourself out there in the world, someone can not like what you're doing.
Right.
And yeah, just create trouble.
Because
But no, I don't consider myself a journalist. Yeah. I just feel like I'm a citizen that's trying to get information.
Yeah.
And I don't have like a journalist badge and I don't really know. I really, really went down a rabbit hole with trying to figure out something related to housing. And there's all these like ethical things you have to think about. And this made me really sad when I talked to you like last week, and I was like really sad because I'm like, I think I want to buy this little house and hire some of the unhoused people to come help me fix it up. And everything is just complicated. It's like we have all these empty abandoned properties and all these people who need housing. And then you start to look into like, could I buy this property? Could I pay some people to come and flip this house or to like get it livable so that a couple people could live there? And there's all these legal things. And then like one of the people obviously was suffering with some mental health stuff. So then I'm like, well, is that ethical? Like if someone's not quite in their right mind, can you like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of things like that, like legal storytelling. I'm a storyteller or a interviewer, but I'm not a journalist.
Yeah.
And I'm also not a therapist in my role here. So there's also that line of like, if I'm getting involved with someone who's unhoused, I'm not involved with them in my capacity as a social worker.
Right.
I have to like cut that too.
Although a lot of your skill from that work comes into play here with your guests.
And a lot of the people who are unhoused who are suffering from either addiction or mental health issues, which that is not the majority of people who are unhoused, but there's a little population in Rock Island where that's very much going on. And so, you know, there's like some people with really good technical skills where they could be rehabbing houses, but maybe they have active delusions. Yeah. But I kind of think of that as being with someone who has dementia, where they're not presenting quite normally, but they might have a rote memory of how to do an activity. I wouldn't mind.
So they could still do a job.
Yes.
They can still do a job.
I wouldn't mind working with someone who is having delusions.
Yeah.
But because I come from the mental health field. So it's like, you know, this guy that I was kind of working with and talking to, he was telling me really off the wall stuff. But it's like, well, that's what it feels like to have delusions. But you could still maybe rip out carpet and put down new carpet. Yeah. So do I want to get really involved in that? I don't know.
Well, but that's a part of your gift is being able to see.
On that high of
well, like, you see his worth, you see his value, you see his humanity beyond his mental limitations.
But I also see why it's hard for him to keep a job. Yeah. And that you'd have to overlook some of that. And then it's like, well, maybe the reason I got involved in all this was to help people with significant mental health issues to have some sort of employment. I don't know how that's all going to work. And then I was like, can we make it part of storytelling? Could we tell this person's story and do like a series like that on the podcast? But then it's like all the legal and ethical things come up. Can you engage someone who's not in treatment for their mental illness to tell their story, I don't know if that's ethical. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know the power of storytelling. And you've had community organizing training, but a lot of community organizing that I have experience with in the past has been around getting people involved through telling their own story and translating that story into a policy solution and then presenting that policy solution to legislators or governing bodies. And so I think that could be a part of this. And yeah, there'd be you'd have to, figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
But
that's where I kind of get I notice myself get energized and then have the wind sucked out of my own sails. And then I have a day to recover because I found this cute little house. There were a handful of people that have backgrounds in this type of thing. And I was like, how do we take this one house as a pilot project, restore it to be livable? Maybe the first one you would sell, or you could just rent it for super cheap, get involved with the land bank, and help people with backgrounds in the trades. Cause there are a lot of men with addiction issues and mental health issues who have trade experience. So I start walking down that path because just like the podcast, I'm like, well, we'll just make this happen and it'll be good. I can be extremely hopeful.
We're jumping out of the plane.
Yes. And then it might be, my sister or someone who loves me who's like, so you're going to also do that. And then what happens? When do you. And I was kind of walking down that path. And then the main person I was kind of communicating with showed up one day in a more severe mental health situation. And then I doubt myself. I'm like, can I do this? Would this work? So sometimes the ideas I have, I can be so hopeful that then maybe I get reined back into reality of that would be really hard. But I also don't believe that just because it would be really hard doesn't mean it's still not a good idea.
Yeah.
Or still couldn't work. Because I think to change society and systems, you have to fundamentally shift some stuff. Can a person with some profound mental health issue with the right supervision or situation have work?
Yeah.
And you might have to be sensitive to there might be 3 days where they don't show up.
Right.
And in a normal situation, that person would get fired.
Right.
But I don't know, Jess. I can just get so hopeful that sometimes
But I think that is a micro example of the macro that you're trying to accomplish and that Rock Island is trying to accomplish, which is it is an uphill battle right now. That's been discussed with, multiple people on here. And you need people who are hopeful, who have a vision of things that don't seem that possible, maybe, and to see things in the city that other people don't see, to take it somewhere.
Well, and that's the other, I guess, piece of this is as all this has been going on, I'm sitting in this studio, which is 2 blocks away from the third place.
Yeah. I'm
literally in here 6 hours a week. I'm paying over $1,000 a month in expenses.
Yeah.
No one's paying me to do this podcast, by the way. So I've also had this really weird kind of what is this space for?
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I'd run a little store out of here. I can get very hopeful. So I'm like, who's running a store? I don't have time to do that. I've had people approach me to be like, could I come record a podcast in there? But then I'd have to arrange all that. And when I look at my priorities and what feels most important, to maybe record the podcast somewhere free.
Yeah.
And then continue to invest what my husband and I decided on, which was we'll spend $1,200 a month on this endeavor to actually invest that in something related to housing.
Right.
Whether that's helping someone pay for housing or doing something where you're converting something so that the rent when the project was over would only be $300 a month, very below market rent rent. So that's another, I guess, update is I don't know what's going to happen with the space because it doesn't sit well with me that this place with electricity and running water and a bathroom and a couch and sits empty while there are people sleeping on the street a block away. And what am I spending my money on then?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right anymore because I'm not cranking T-shirts out of here like I thought I would be.
Well, I think that's reflects your thoughtfulness. But yeah, restart it next year. We'll get the wall transplanted.
That's the sad part, is the wall.
Yeah.
How do you get so attached to a wall?
Well, we'll just have someone recreate it, and most of these people can come sign again, right?
I thought maybe I could have a little party with the guests.
Yeah.
And then just recreate the wall, because I have an office in Rock Island that I could just do this out of for free.
Oh, that would be so cool.
So we could just recreate it, and because that would make me sad. But how impactful is $12,000 a year in the life of a person who's unhoused versus like, I come sit here.
Or some other commitment to the city in a way that is meaningful to you, even if it's not.
I mean, I thought like a bunch of people would be subscribing to my podcast and like paying me every month
making donations.
I only have one regular contributor. So,
well, I'm a regular listener.
Yes.
But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So I think part of it too is like, as you're talking about the world and thinking about the world, and for me, it feels very important to have like one small way that I do something too. So I don't want to just talk about it. I want to actually try to figure out like one little way to be a part of the rainbow, whether that's donating to the third place or, with the SNAP benefit cuts, all that stuff that's happening. Anyone who listens to the podcast, like, figure out like, how could I take a meal to one person?
Feed people. Yeah.
How could I feed someone? How could I don't know. If there's a problem going on in my community where people are struggling, like, what's one little way I could be part of being a solution? And I think that's what all my guests have in common, is that they are all part of being in one family of humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one in. I did a tour of Riverbank. Was it Riverbend Food Bank? Mm-hmm. I think they said 1 in 4. Is it 1 in 4 kids in the Quad Cities is food insecure? Maybe more.
That sounds about right. I don't know the statistics, but
it was like shocking. It might even be more than that. So with these cuts, they're going to just be. They've already seen cuts. My understanding since COVID, I think what happens is the food banks then have to start purchasing food to distribute, which is a drain, right?
Wow.
So even donating to them so that they have the money to purchase. And I think they get like a lot of bang for their buck too.
Yeah.
So I think I can't speak for them. I don't know anything other than what I learned on the tour, but I think donating and, donating food and money so that they can purchase. But the numbers are just, it's
wild.
Yeah. Already. This is before these cuts go into effect. And I remember
that from when the babies were little, like, my parents are loving and wonderful, but they weren't paying my bills as an adult. So I was fortunate because we were in a situation like we were never going to starve. Even if we lost our house, we could have lived with my parents,
Right.
But I do remember like needing WIC to just round out our grocery budget.
Yeah.
That's so weird. And I'm fine now. I'm more than fine.
And that's what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're in places like that, you also just feel like there, but for the grace of God go I. Like, everyone is closer to that reality than we like to think. Yeah.
Well, whatever you decide to do with it, I know it'll be, something awesome and
maybe
great.
You can come back and talk to me every once in a while, and we can do like morning meeting.
We can do an update. We could start
recording our phone conversations on our drive.
We should, and also, I keep trying to pitch this roadshow idea. Like, you and I don't have to have jobs, but like maybe we can develop that plan and then.
Yeah, we have an idea to go visit famous Rock Island alum like Greg Moore's pizza place in Chicago, or the president of Harvard, or just people who are from here but are off in the world doing cool things.
Yeah,
that sounds fun.
I just think they're, I've always loved the young people in Rock Island. I feel like Rock Island really does have the best, like, teens, young people. And I feel like inspiring them to greatness. Not that they don't already have that, I'm sure that they do. And there are wonderful educators and examples in the community of that. But I feel like I've always had this dream of having this, like, like alumni resurgence onto the high school of all of these people. Because there are, I mean, if you go on LinkedIn or there are people from Rock Island doing crazy awesome things, including running Harvard.
Yeah.
But other things as well, creative things, not a ton of athletes, of course, but like not just, really cool stuff. And so I think it'd just be cool to talk to those people, to maybe inspire young people on Rock Island to understand. And also like the Quad Cities, I think you've talked to some of your guests about this. Just this idea that there's like one of the Quad Cities that's better than the others.
I mean, obviously Rock Island is. But no, I'm teasing.
Those conversations about, I mean, you talked about we moved. But I mean, when people say stuff like, those weird comments that like, oh yeah, it's a good thing you moved. And I'm just like, no, I actually really loved it there. We just had trouble finding housing and my family's over here and it just makes sense for us.
Yeah.
There are these practical realities. But it's not because Rock Island isn't an awesome place with awesome people doing awesome things.
And it's good to have that feedback too, because there are things you can't get in Rock Island that young families want. Like the really wide sidewalks and the structure of a home. You guys have a bigger family. Like there is stuff like that that the city needs to maybe think about if it wants to be competitive. I don't know how they do it. Build an enclave of, I don't know, but but there are certain amenities and things that are missing in Rock Island. You do have to trade up a little bit. But I love how it's like not super busy. You're not fighting traffic all the time. There's a chill vibe. You got a chill vibe. But
there are, I mean, amazing restaurants. Yeah. I mean, obviously QC Pancake House is a gem, but other places too that we miss, and it's a great place to be, and you're a part of it.
And we never saw each other when you lived here anyway. So
it's true. And how far we were? Like sad. A mile. Were we a mile and a half apart?
Were we even that far?
I think it was. I think it was a little longer than I thought.
Yeah. It's just a reflection of my life. Like I don't have any time to get together with anyone. I can only talk to you when I'm in transit.
I know. And I'm a bad texter. So like, I mean, we do text sometimes, but I'm not a texter
either.
Yeah. I'm much better on the phone. So that's why we have a good.
Yeah. You and my sister, I literally talk to you guys. Sometimes I'm like, I don't have any time to talk to
I'm calling you while you're talking
with
your sister.
Like I spend 2 hours a day talking to my sister and Jess. Some days it might be 2 hours, because we can easily get on the phone for an hour.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's true.
There's just, Well, I love you.
I love you too. I'm so proud of you. This really is a gem, and the city should be so proud. And, honestly, I think Rock Island is standing out in part because of what you're doing.
Well, I've been barred from the city communications director from talking to anyone at the city. So I don't know if proud is the word.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's just, that kind of stuff is just, honestly, it's just fear.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's part of this, right? It's like, ooh, I'm going to talk to all these people. And then it's like, you may no longer speak to anyone.
You are not allowed. But I just think that's fear. It's like people, it's almost like a phobia of engagement or something by people who are responsible to the people.
Yeah.
And we're going through this hopefully movement right now to say to people who are elected, like, you are responsible to us. And this is not,
you should want people asking questions.
Yes.
You should want people ruffling feathers. That's healthy.
Yeah. And hand over, as your dad said, hand over the information and let the chips fall and stand behind what you believe and what you've decided. And if the people aren't with you on it anymore, they're not with you in it anymore. And either you have to shift or they have to find someone who represents their interest.
Yeah.
And that's the trade-off.
I love that. That is so true. We can make it complicated, but it's just, it's getting people to be engaged so that can just play out.
Yeah.
People are held accountable for the choices that they make and the things that they do. And if it's working for everyone, great. And if it's not, that there are enough normal people who want to be engaged in politics that we can have a new person.
Yeah.
We got to get normal people in there, though.
But I think Mayor Harris, your interview with Ashley, and I keep calling him that out of respect for the position that he was elected to, but I've also known Ashley since 8th grade. And by the way, he's had the same voice since 8th grade, but also like he's been that kind, gentle, but also very convicted person, I feel like, since then. But I think one of the things that I got from that interview was just, he's just kind of like, this is who I am. This is who I was elected to be. And if people don't want that anymore at some point, they don't. But I'm going to do what I promised I would do when I was elected.
Yeah.
And I think there has to just be more of that, because, you know, if people aren't held accountable or responsible for that decision making, I mean, you do see communities fall apart because there's no engagement from people.
Yeah. But I'm sure he's having a hard time. Like, I don't know that. I have not talked to him recently, but it is a lot of probably, I'm guessing, well, that's just not really how we do it. Yeah. Or, you know, this is how it's always been done. And so I hope he is having luck being like, but why? Or, you know, let's try something different, or I'm going to mix things up a little bit here, because that's why new leadership is ushered in. Right. And you have to let it represent what it was meant to represent. You can't put blockades in it every step of the way.
And I know nothing about the economics of like young families and what that does to ignite a community economically. But I feel like if you want young families to continue to stay here and be committed, I mean, they're looking for leadership that looks like them to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit, you know, do you want your city to die with your aging, you know, do you want your city to age with the aging leadership? Or, you know, or do you want it to be revived?
Well, it's kind of like the bigger world. We have two economies. We have the economy of AI and all this tech advancement, and there's like an industry that's booming and everybody's doing pretty well there. But then there's just this huge swath of the population that is deeply suffering and not okay. And I feel like Rock Island is kind of like that. It's like there's an elite group of people who are really doing fine. And this is probably a place they can live that accelerates their wealth because it's affordable. You know, you have low housing costs. I guess property taxes are high. And then you just have like the rest of the population that's really suffering. And when the group that's doing okay is the group that's always making choices and decisions, it's like, well, we're insulating ourselves here. We're still doing okay. The city's basically still working for us. And we need to expand that out so it's working for everyone.
And to the point you've made in prior conversations, you cannot put a Band-Aid on those things, on those people, on those perceived problems, human beings, and put a sign over it with some lights and pretend like you're solving your community problems. That doesn't do anything. How are you going to get...
I've said you shouldn't... It's kind of like giving yourself a facelift when you have organ failure.
Yeah.
Like, look how pretty I am.
Yeah.
My internal organs are bleeding right now. But my face is snatched.
What do they call that? The Mar-a-Lago makeover?
I have a Mar-a-Lago makeover.
You have to edit that out, but yeah.
Yeah. So I do feel hopeful that Mayor Ashley has that mind of whenever we're looking at progress, like you have to really be wrapping your arms around the whole city. Yeah. And that's what Rock Island's never really done, ever. Yeah. Never. And so what would it look like to do that?
And even when Thurgood ran for mayor and then state rep, I mean, such close races and, you know, but I think he represented something new and new life that could have been brought to the city, and he continues to contribute to the city in different ways now. But I think to me, he was an example of that as well, and continues to be in a different way, and hopefully will be in a more public way in the future. But you know, people just had a hard time as much as they loved him, and I think saw promise in him. And he talked a lot about his conversations were never really on party lines at all. I think a lot of people just either embraced him or they didn't. Mm-hmm. And the people that embraced him, and I think that is something beautiful about Rock Island is, I think like party wise, I think people are just they kind of just go with their gut on what feels like someone's, you know, what's right here. And, you know, but again, I think it's that engagement and getting all of those people to participate that's going to like move the needle. Yeah. And hopefully, you know, younger leadership will lead to that. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not being ageist. I mean, I think you can be incredibly powerful and be seasoned and experienced. And that seasoning and experience is important. I mean, but yeah.
Well, we're just going to keep an eye on things over here at the Rock Island line.
We're going to move, you're going to move physical locations, but
I might move. I might downsize and redistribute. And I was like, I could even like put out a budget, and just publish it online. Like, this is what it costs to run the podcast.
Yeah.
And this is the money that I'm spending in certain areas, like just to look at, because I think I've probably said this to you a long time ago, but as people like me, I think I said this in an early podcast, probably, like, as the tax system benefits me more and more, and so I take the chips I already have in this economy, and I benefit. Like, I've just benefited from the Trump administration's tax stuff personally. Our income, this picture's good, and I think it is for you too. So I can be frustrated that we don't have a more progressive tax policy, or I can be frustrated but it doesn't stop me from personally doing anything to redistribute my wealth.
Right.
And I'd prefer everyone was forced to equally to me.
Yeah.
But in the absence of that, I do think people should give. Like, you got to give money away to people.
Yeah.
And you should just test out giving cash to people.
I was going to say, but you want to give. You really mean
I'm really
that.
into the cash.
You really
to people.
mean the cash. We've talked a lot about that. But not just giving, but literally giving people money.
Yeah.
Which I think there's some like research and science behind that being
So I'd
true.
also like everyone to give cash to people this week. However much cash that is and whoever you want to give it to. But if you notice at the grocery store, you're like, I wonder if that person is struggling with their, food bill. Yeah. Rather than be like, let me buy you some groceries.
Yeah.
Let me control how you're going to receive the things that I think that you need and that I've judged are good uses of your capital.
Right.
I'm going to give you $100 and I'm going to trust that you are going to do with that what is to your best and highest purpose.
Yeah.
Now, if you see the person's like actively using drugs, maybe not that person.
Yeah.
But for the majority of people who are struggling, they're not going to do something nefarious with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the control, the, pulling of the levers, the, even I think as you've seen in city government, like government entities wanting to have money to filter through them to control what happens to it. And to a certain degree, I see this ordinance, the homelessness ordinance being a part of it. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it's just this is our, we control this. We control how this happens. If there's going to be money coming in for these services, we want a piece of it to do what we want with it, or we're going to say where these services are provided. No one else is going to tell us how that happens. Yeah. And it's just a control and a lever pulling. It's
or just
power.
How reticent governments are to give money to people. So the city approved the sale of the $1 million property at the Milan Bottoms, which I think they bought it for $10, but they have it valued on their books at like $1 million. So they sold it to Matt Stern for he bought it from them for $270,000. So technically they should be getting $270,000 into their community and economic development spreadsheet as an incoming income. Why can't they just take that money and help people pay rent who are unhoused? There's nothing that says they can't, but they won't because that's not what our city government has had a history of doing. They'll pump it into like a facade program. Like I could probably get a new facade and spend $5,000 on stickers and stuff for my window, and then Stecker Graphics will put it on, and then they'll pay me back for half of that project. So the city would love to help me put stickers on my window. But as
a business, you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
But they probably wouldn't give money to someone to help them pay rent.
Right.
So they could. But just as humans have a hard time just being like, let me give you money.
Right.
So do governments. But I want to like mess with that hypothesis.
Yeah.
So
we're coming back around to you're going to run for office and make that happen.
No, I'm just going to try to make other people do it.
No, but I think even having a conversation about that issue in a public way is helpful for people to not only be engaged, but to understand. Yeah. What was that? What does happen with that money? Do I have a say in that? Mm-hmm. If I do have an opinion about it, what do I do? Oh, my alderman was on the podcast. That's who I can, call. it's just that engagement.
And when you look at like accountability, like at the national level, if we did do something like an American dividend and it was money in everyone's pocket, and you got rid of all these middle layers and programs and even the SNAP thing, it's going to affect people in this real way where they're going to ask, who represents me and why is this happening?
Yeah.
And it ties the consequences and the feedback directly to your elected leaders in a bigger way.
Right.
The only silver lining of this might be that people who are affected by it are like, oh, I need to be engaged because this is directly hitting me.
Right.
And these little ways we like trail people along with just enough to survive, and it's funneled through nonprofits and, you know, middlemen and programs. It's like it dilutes the accountability. It's like, why isn't this happening for me anymore? I don't know.
Right.
It's so many layers of it. And to just link more closely, like, how's the country doing?
Well, and then
I know because I have this dividend.
Yeah. And as you've talked about that dilution happening in other ways where something is funded and then it goes through 5 different hands or contractors, or we need to study how to distribute this. And then, you know, that goes, you know, $1 million to some sort of contractor who's going to do an analysis on what happens once we distribute this. And then now we've lost $1 million that could have gone to people.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like where there's no business opportunities, people having to set up nonprofits to do the things they want to do in business in a way where they're not going to have to pay taxes because maybe they don't have that much money or capital to put into their business. So that's a way to do what you want to do, but in a nonprofit format. There's just so many things, Jess.
I know. This is what we talk about.
This is more like a morning conversation. But I want to be the person who has the microphone that's like, tell me what you think about universal basic income. That's going to be my role. Or when I really grow up and I don't have such a big job to do, I would love to write stories about it, to like highlight these ways people are and how they operate and their values and societal things through like more creative storytelling, like a TV series.
Are we moving into TV?
Yes, that's next.
Well, your husband has some skill with, that's animations, but you could do like, I don't know.
Once Fresh Films comes here, I'll be like, let me pitch you guys a 6-part series. It's a little bit Ozarks, a little bit, you know. So, but that would be like, sometimes I think about the policy stuff too. I'm like, what would you do with yourself if your basic needs were met? Or even for me, what would I do with myself if people's basic needs were met?
Yeah.
Because it's like a lot of my time is spent thinking about other people's basic needs. I'd be creative.
Yeah.
You know, and so if you structure a society so that people's basic needs are met,
right,
you don't even know what people are going to come up with.
Yeah.
Because we're all just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And like what ideas could be generated, what creativity, what people need.
Well, now you're
healthcare.
talking about something that people don't want, which is some people in power don't want, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Competition. Like if it's
even
really
though
a meritocracy and you really want people to be competitive,
right,
and you really want competitors to challenge you, think of all the competitors you're taking out of the game by putting them in a state where they're starving.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Yeah. Or the point that you've made is just the war on DEI. It's like DEI is the ultimate meritocracy.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate meritocracy. It is saying the system that has benefited. Yeah.
This is our morning time conversation.
This is our morning time.
I'll give you a sneak peek, audience.
Yeah.
Katie Miller was on MSNBC. Do you know who Katie Miller is? She's married to Stephen Miller.
Yes.
And she was saying that I think Biden's press secretary was a DEI hire. And so she's just like going in like, why do we need to find out that she's a Black queer woman every 5 minutes? Why is she qualified to be in that role? Like, I'm just watching it like, who are you? Like, you're married to someone who works for the White House. Right. And that is the new DEI, is the relatives. Pete Hegseth has fired all of these qualified, long-serving generals and a lot of people of color. He's fired them, but like put his brother in the position to do something in the military, even though he has no experience. Like, why is Katie Miller out talking on the news?
Yeah. Why are we listening? Like what?
Yeah. Like, what are your qualifications? So you can use nepotism. You can make your children and your relatives. Yeah. But that is really, if you look at like college admissions, it's being related to someone who's extremely wealthy is the biggest form of DEI there, or the biggest form of affirmative action, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Do you have loaded parents? You are in.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Because also, right, this is a false premise that DEI has done anything to change any of these numbers, by the way. Like, you know what I mean? It's a false premise to equate DEI with any form of affirmative action or otherwise. They're completely different things.
Yeah.
And to create like equity or a true meritocracy means to remove, the nepotism.
Yeah.
And create space for people who are qualified to have a chance.
Yeah.
To compete.
Yeah. And also when you die, like you should give back more of your money because your little offspring will be just fine.
This is like really diving into our conversations based on my prior, I'm going to call it a prior profession, but yeah.
Yeah, that you should give back to the pot and let the new generation meet it out and see who's the most talented.
Yeah.
And I think, when I look at Rock Island, I'm like, there's some good competitors here. They just don't get the opportunity to compete in a real profound way. And the powers that be don't want them to.
Yeah, no more inheritance.
Even like Vice President Vance was at Turning Point USA doing a speech on immigration and how like there's just too many immigrants now. And it was, an Asian Indian woman was like, but your parents are immigrants. And when did you set this thing that like now we've reached the cap and there's too many?
Yeah.
And we have to have everyone look a certain way and like we can't lose this. I mean, I just don't agree with that, but I think it's a fear of competition too.
Yeah.
It's like Black women started going to college and now all these, Charlie Kirk types are like, college is overrated. You don't really need it.
It's not the way.
It's like, we're going to change up the rules. Like, you don't really need to go to college now that, other groups are surpassing us.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just, too much.
No, this is what we talk about.
Because we do talk about national politics and like commentary on.
Yeah. But we do make our way back. I mean, because there is a macro, micro, if there's any trickle down, and we know it's not like economics, but like if there's any trickle down, it is like, I think federal leadership in so many ways is just the primary role is to inspire like perspective, inspire people to their best selves. And when you have leadership doing the opposite of that and you see it kind of coming down into your community slowly in the way that people behave and treat each other, dehumanizing groups of people, it starts to happen.
Yeah.
Locally, you see, poor people being dehumanized. And now even with what's going on with immigration stuff and ICE, I'm just like thinking about all of the Black and brown people, but in particular the, Latino community here. Mm-hmm. I hope they feel safe. I hope, it's tragic, but it does, that sort of behavior trickles down.
And it's because I forget what the statistics are, but, Obama deported a lot of people. So it's not really the deportation or the following of the laws.
It's not fact. It's not based in fact of who's actually doing something.
Yeah. And it's not even that deportation is necessarily across the board wrong or that people who are violating laws or who are violent or criminals, like, okay, it's the optics of it. And it's like, there's some point they're making.
Yeah.
There's through this population, through a vulnerable population where they feel like they can get away with it. It's more like desensitizing people to a presence and an acceptance of violence. And you can watch your police officers behave this way.
Right.
And it's okay. Or trying to get you to believe it's okay. Because I think Obama deported a bunch of people too. But he didn't do it in this public look at it. Like, we're antagonizing you with it. We're
not following any. I mean,
we're doing it.
We've talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene's like 180 here, but she's even said, I mean, come on, like, you can't treat human beings that way.
Yeah,
we don't accept that here. We don't do that to human beings. If you want to enforce immigration laws, you enforce immigration laws, but you don't violate. We as United States citizens, United States as a country, we do not violate people's civil rights. We do not use excessive force when we arrest people. We do not handcuff children, and we do not arrest their mother and handcuff their mother and watch our law enforcement, put her away in a car to some place that no one knows where they're going.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
And if you can't stand by that, I don't
even know what time it is.
I don't know.
Did I forget to pick my kids
It's time.
up
I
from
was
school?
going to say, I think I was.
Jim was just calling me. I'm like, did I forget my children?
It's 3:45.
Is it really? Oh, my whole family's like, where are you, Mom?
Oh my gosh.
Who do you have to pick up?
No one, but I do have to be home by 4:30.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. But I forgot to pick my kids up from school.
Okay. So, do you think we have a good, because what do? You edit all of this? Do you think we have a good ending?
I edited a little bit, but not
Okay.
really. It'll just be this rambly conversation and it'll be good. But I do agree with you that is not how we treat people. And it's just like at the Center for the Living Arts, Dino and Tina, they do such a great job because they set the container right away that this is a place where we are kind and we lift one another up. And it's like, that is what we value here. And that's what makes you a part of this community. And if you're going to be mean and cruel and bully, that is not okay here. And I want the United States to be that way. I want Rock Island to be that way. And so when you have a leader that's encouraging of just mean, bullying, scaring, intimidating behavior, it's
illegal behavior.
Behavior, screwing people over, not having integrity. It that trickles down.
Yeah,
that's the trickle down.
And a
None
lack
of the money gets down, but the bad
seeps down through the roots.
The meanness gets down.
And it's not even. It's more serious than that. It's cruelty. It is unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional. It's unjust.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and it's unloving. But yeah, it's more serious than that. And I think that's a lot of what I've been seeing is just we just lost, are we serious? Some of the posts from supposed leaders on social media stuff, it's we are not to be taken seriously. This is a joke.
The president dropping poop on all of our heads?
But she's we are not to be taken seriously. It's a joke. And so I think when you have people in leadership, that sort of leadership, it trickles down in a negative way that money doesn't.
But then when you're trying to trickle back up, you're trying to take the groundswell of what do I want the world to look like and push it back up. You do have to be kinder and wiser and smarter and more generous and loving. And that's the thing I think I struggle with is as you're getting or absorbing that behavior, I can get ignited in a way that I want to squash that.
Yeah.
But then if you're coming back at it with that energy, is that helpful? Is it not? And then that's what we've talked about is when do you...
What's the line?
What is the Rock Island line?
What is the Rock Island line? What is the line? That's what, Ezra and Ta-Nehisi's conversation about that was their conversation. What is the line? When do you say, and I think, I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's certainly somewhere around the humanity, the denial of humanity of another person or their existence.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a line somewhere. That's got to
be a line. But it's it is happening. And you can't pay attention to that line all over the world because that line is being violated because physically and emotionally and capacity-wise, we can't run across the world, so then you think about where's that line in my country, in my state, in my city, in my family, you know, and you try to hold your boundaries and do it in a way that isn't sowing more destruction. I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure it out tomorrow.
I'll call
you in the morning.
You call me in the morning, but I think you should
go home and get my kids.
I think you should go get your kids, but I also think you should.
How long we've been? Well, this may be my longest podcast, Jess.
Well, you need to edit it a lot, and obviously it needs to end.
And I just
differently
jump around on this couch that's so squeaky.
I feel like we had a good ending earlier. But I like this. I like the last.
We blew right past that.
We
oh wait, you moved the microphone away from your
sorry,
face.
Yeah.
And so
No, we did blow right past that.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't come across as Meghan Markle and her friends podcast. Have you seen people roasting
No,
that? Oh
no.
Gosh. You go home and look it up.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's
with all my free time, I will.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I'll edit this part out because I don't want to be mean to Meghan Markle or her friend, but it's like pretty funny actually.
No, I haven't seen it.
But, okay, we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think we've covered it.
I told you earlier, my ending, my way to end is just to tell you how proud of you that I am and how proud Rock Islanders should be that you are here and committed and that you're doing this. And it's an incredibly vulnerable thing to do. It's an incredibly bold thing to do. And that tension is necessary for healing and for growth. And so I hope this continues to be a living organism that grows through difficult conversations and sometimes tension and things that feel political, but that are really just human things and that come from your desire, I think, to see Rock Island thrive. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. I like it.
So
I meant to clip that and put it at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like, get a load of this episode. Well, I love you. Thanks for doing this.
I love you too.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, let's go pick up our children from
Talk to you in 5 minutes.
their various places. Yes,
okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.